there. We'll open it up to the world to
There you
see. Okay.
Is this the sweet spot?
It's a pretty good spot. Okay, that's live. That's live. What about Facebook? Oh man, we are totally and 100% live.
Boom.
Boom, everybody. I'm
Boom
not
goes
going to
the
distract
dynamite.
you with this. I'm going to turn this off.
All right, there you go. Otherwise, I'd be watching it the whole time.
Yeah, that's the strategy. That's why we have one of those.
You're hiding it from us.
Well, I just want you to look at me and not yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same thing for me.
If it's behind you, you could pretend like, oh, I'm kind of.
Yeah, no. So, hey, welcome everybody for joining us live. So today in the studio we have Michael and Sam Jogoloff.
Yeah,
That was
that's pretty
close.
Jogolef?
Yeah.
That's why it's called Jogo Lift.
That's right.
And yours is not anything to do with that.
I know.
So you need to change your IG handle.
This is like since high school. Like seriously.
Guys, look at that back. Though. Look at that quarter turn. Ooh, look at that. Look at that top ab, the one that never came for me.
We call him
Love
like
it.
20 pack.
Yeah.
He has a 20 pack.
Yeah, so today, who do we have here? We have this phenomenal couple. If you're checking this out for the first time, this is a live podcast. We're totally live. And what we're going to do is we met because Michael is the brother of Christina, who was guest number 13, I want to say. She was here a couple weeks back, about a month back, actually. And then she told me about her awesome brother.
Lies.
And told me all these things. And I was like, all right. And then she introduced us. And then he brought this really beautiful lady with him, who was his wife.
God, who'd you bring?
Oh. That's good. By the way, if you see that what I'm doing here, I'm switching the camera. So last time Anthony from the water store was like, dude, what were you clicking away? It was I didn't know. And I was like, I should have told you. So that's what's happening there. It's going to happen
Nice.
the whole time. So
Nice.
I'm the one-man band here. I'm doing it all, so we're making it happen. And so go back to the introduction here. We'll go there. You guys started a gym, and now you guys have a couples mastermind group that's coming out in June. At the end of June is the first installment of this event.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
And then right now you're taking applicants. So we'll get into all of that. I mean, enough of that, but we'll dissect each of those. How are the both of you doing today?
Amazing.
Yeah, fantastic.
Very good. Very good. And you were telling me something earlier before we got on the podcast about what you did today. You want to share that with the world?
Oh, for sure. So we went around to different fire stations here in San Diego to talk with them about working with them to put them through health and fitness challenges. So one of the things that we do is at the facility, we've put in plenty of normal people walk in through 6-week challenges or transformations to help them improve their overall health and fitness, helping them develop lifestyle changes or habits to make it long-term sustainable success, whatever, make lifestyle changes. And then with the firefighters, most of them are in good shape. They take care of themselves.
Of course, they got to fight fires.
Exactly.
So what are you putting them through that's harder than fighting fires, my friend?
Well, it's more the competitive nature. So it's like, hey, look, different habits, and then also the aspect of putting them together, the challenge of competition. And so for most of them can maintain what it is that they have. Some of them, I'm sure, make great progress, but nothing compares to like, hey, look, we're going to battle it out for a couple weeks and see who comes out on top.
Okay.
And
So what kind of challenges we're talking?
Team building challenges. Well, honestly, but like most of them, because I feel like our facility is pretty badass, not gonna lie. We opened for OCR, so we have a lot of fun equipment. So like tire flipping.
Tell me
sled
OCR, what it is
pushing,
again.
Obstacle course racing.
If you didn't know, because I didn't know that's what it stands for.
Yes,
I
sorry.
thought it was Orange County something, because that's where I'm from.
Orange County Rescue. Uh-oh. Hey,
There you go.
close.
Yeah. Okay. OCR.
OCR, so obstacle course racing, like Spartan races, Tough Mudder races. And so that's what we had originally opened the gym for, geared towards those athletes.
So just to pause there, you have a gym in San Diego downtown area,
just south of downtown. It's technically National City, but yeah.
National City, near downtown.
Yeah.
We'll go with it. And Yeah, and it's an obstacle course racing equipped gym,
Mhm.
but now it's utilized for not just that, but also to host people and coach them through workouts and mentorship and things like all that nature,
Yeah.
which we'll all dissect.
So our big thing is we don't necessarily consider ourselves in the fitness business, which would be
Okay.
weird for like a gym to say like, oh, we don't do fitness, because we believe that fitness is like the last thing to get the results that you want. So we consider ourselves a lifestyle company where it's like, hey, look, we teach you how to live the lifestyle that will get you the results that you want. So we'll increase, energy, lifestyle, productivity, but then also like happy, because most people think that like if I achieve a certain level of fitness, I'll be happy. But we try to get them happy before they get that level of fitness, because then if they get that, it's just a cherry on top, and then they can maintain it.
Wow. That's a good point you bring up, because I've probably told this story before, but I'll tell you when I won, because you mentioned you saw my picture and you said, hey, I want to look like whatever I looked like, or I couldn't look like that. I think you said specifically, but I remember the day that I looked supposedly the best I could and won the West Coast Classic, and I felt terrible because I thought I didn't look what I wanted to in my head. At least I needed another like 4 or 5 weeks maybe to get ready. And yeah, you're right. I got up there and I was very disappointed, even though I did win, because I was putting so much into like that day, that event.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of it, it was like really about that whole journey, the people I met throughout it, and the people I helped, and the people I worked with and got to know, and who got to know me.
Now.
Yeah. What?
And the people you can help now
And
because
the
of
people
it.
you can help now. Exactly. So it was really never about that one day or, looking a certain way. It was really about just kind of doing the rituals and learning the practice and having something that's valuable enough to help other people with. I mean, that wasn't ever my original intention with it. I was really just trying to do it for myself to get healthy. And then it turned into this competitive thing like you talked about with the firefighters.
Yeah.
And the moment you become competitive, there's definitely a downside to it, because you can get too competitive, and that often comes at harms for your health, towards your health. So, balancing that out, it's just kind of like where we are now.
For sure. And then doing it like in a sustainable manner, because we were actually talking with someone earlier this week about like bodybuilding and fitness competitions, and how he knows a lot of women who do it and they love it, but at the peak of your like competition, like you're so unhealthy, you're so weak, you feel like crap. And then you forget like the journey that you've taken, and it is a journey. And you're like, well, when you're doing it, you're so focused on this one day. And then when that one day happens, it's like, that was it. Now what do I do?
Yeah.
Do I continue? How do I go back? Do I still like this lifestyle? Is it a lifestyle I really enjoyed?
Right.
So like learning like where that balance is makes a big difference.
Or they get so much of their identity wrapped up in like stepping on stage that they kind of lose themselves in that. And so like when they first start doing it, it's like, oh, I want to do this to see what I'm capable of.
Mm-hmm.
And then they no longer worry about what they're capable of, because they just become consumed with the status that they get by stepping on stage. And so a lot of them, like they struggle, because it's like, hey, look, like I want to have a life, but this lifestyle won't allow me to have one. So like, especially the people we were talking to the other day, like they're all, young, beautiful women, but they struggle to have a relationship, because it's like, oh, well, my coach wants me to do this. I have to be like that. I can't go out on a date. I can't do all these things that like would be potentially a social life, because they want to be able to step on stage. So like they struggle with getting the trophy or getting whatever it is on stage, but then also having a happy life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I would like to say, at least from my experience, maybe it's a little bit unique from the perspective you're seeing it, but having been a competitor, I could say that what happens is you realize, at least what I did was, I realized what would it take. It started with what would it take if I just focus myself for the next, whatever amount of time, and try to optimize my day as much as I could and see what would happen. So that was the framework that I was operating from. Having somebody that was objective and outside, like my coach, it was good to like check in with somebody like that and say, hey, here's where you really are, and here's what's good, and here's what needs to be worked on. That was mostly what was the time spent on. So you get into the habit of taking a certain set of actions, dissecting them down into like patterns of behavior that you can repeat, reps and sets, workout routines. And then you start to see, well, what's working and what's not working. What does my body look like? And then you start to see when things don't look the way they should, or when you're not on target, you can start to dissect even further. What is it that you're not doing that you should be doing? And there's no end to that. And I think people that step into wanting to compete in bodybuilding have Like, it's all cool and fun to do it for Instagram and all that, but at the end of the day, what at least I believe it starts with is you have to realize that this is not fun.
Oh, yeah.
No.
And this is not something you're going to do and have fun. That was the biggest problem I had with everybody that I saw was trying to do it and then didn't succeed with, was they thought this would be really fun. And I'm like, what part of it sounds fun to you?
You get to work out all day, every day.
Do that for about a week and then see what happens. See how your body breaks down and you don't recover.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what you do, it just gets worse. And it's like, well, that's the life you choose, but you have a bigger motive in mind. So I guess, yeah, I like that, you know, more and more people are getting involved in fitness, but it needs to be the dialogue. And I would agree with you guys upon, like, there has to be a balance there. But competing in anything is not a balance. That has to be your focus, right? That is all you got to do. If you do anything outside of that, well, now you're technically losing because you are not spending that time trying to grow. You know, like they say when what is it? Your competitors are asleep, you're up working, so you get a leg up on that.
Yeah.
Which is a good segment to ask you. You said last time you were here when we first met that you wake up at 3 a.m. Is that for both of you?
No, that's for him.
That's for me.
Where did that
I'm
come
for-
from? And how did that start? Have you always woken up at 3 a.m?
Definitely not. I was the person in high school that swore, like, as soon as I graduated high school, I would never wake up, you know, before the sun. And then when I was immediately after high school, which didn't end very well, I started doing construction, which you know, required me to get up early anyway.
Why didn't high school end well?
I was kicked out of school, so I was expelled the first day of senior year. So
you had 3 good years. You're a good boy.
It was
and then
either-
you said, screw it. On the 4th year, I'm just going to mess up so bad.
Well, it's actually I was not good any of the years.
Oh, okay. So the plot thickens,
Yeah.
huh?
So and you know, more interesting is that, like, I went to a school that is from 6th to 12th, so I was there for longer. So I was there from 6th grade all the way to the first day of 12th.
Yeah.
And then I was expelled first day of 12th grade, and then for lack of better terms, made an example of. So
what did you do?
I
This is the Real Abhinav podcast.
Yeah.
We're not going to graze over details here. All right.
So-
We're going to be here till nighttime if we have to.
I shot 3 of my friends with a BB gun on the way home from school.
Such as this one here.
Exactly.
Such as this 9mm.
So
It's a BB gun.
I used to carry one of those in my car, and we would, like, jokingly shoot each other. So we all had them, and we would shoot each other or whatever.
Yeah.
And so on the first day of school, I had it in my car. On the way home from school, I shot 3 of my friends. That, because I was at school and on my way home, is considered school property. So the way that they made it sound was I brought a gun to school and shot 3 kids.
Oh, you were the headline.
So I was facing 4 felonies at 17 for bringing a gun to school, which is a felony, and then shooting it. And I was charged with an account of assault for every time the
How
gun
did you
was
get
fired.
caught?
One of my friends had to get the BB taken out, and when he went to the
Wait,
emergency
you're
room,
talking about metals?
yeah,
Oh, those are those
Well-
called BBs?
those are more fun.
Like pellets.
Those are more fun. No, pellets have different shape.
You're talking about metal BBs? You're
Yeah,
crazy, man.
So metal BB.
Aren't they
These
all
are
like that?
plastic, yo.
Oh,
these
really?
These are plastic I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to kill people
Yeah,
here, dude.
plastic is pellets, or pellets are the soft, like, lead ones that have a different shape. BBs are the steel, like,
I'm
round.
going to look this up and
Yeah,
find
for
this
sure.
out.
And
BB
so
pellets.
yeah, or just BB. Oh, there you go.
Okay.
See, those are the pellets, and then the other ones are BBs, but the steel is BB.
So
Yeah,
your boy went to high school one day and took a what kind of gun was it? Do you remember?
It was just, I think it was a Daisy, like a CO2 pistol.
I used to have
Yeah,
one-
there you go, the silver one. Like
there
that.
you go.
Yeah,
Oh my
for sure.
god, it totally looks like it.
Yeah.
Specific. And it was the nitrogen powered or
Yeah.
the CO2 powered?
Yeah, and so because I had a fresh cartridge in it, obviously broke the skin.
Oh man.
and
This boy
so-
ain't playing.
And
Well,
so
were you mad at them or were you just playing?
No, we were just playing. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
did your friends also have BB guns?
White kids, right? Yeah, for sure.
So wait, hold on. Your friends had BB guns. You had BB gun, but you got caught and they didn't.
Yeah, well, they didn't have them with them at school. Like, it was something like, oh, like, that would happen, right?
Okay.
Kind of like paintballing, except for more extreme. And so, because that happened on the way home from school, it's considered school property. And
Yeah.
so one of my friends, they had to get the BB like pulled out. And when they went to the emergency room, they asked like, oh, what happened? They said that it happened by me, and they reported it as bodily harm caused by someone else. So then the hospital called the police. And so then the police came to my house looking for me, which I was not there. I was taking my sister to work. And then I got a call from my parents saying, don't come home. The cops are here.
Whoa.
At least your parents were
Wow.
like looking out for you.
But then when I got home, my dad was like, oh, this is a situation. They had no idea I had a BB gun. So they're like, do you have a BB gun? I was like, yeah. Where do you keep it? Under the seat of my car, of course, where everyone else keeps their BB gun. So then he was like, well, this is a situation. They're going to be waiting for you at school tomorrow. So you have two choices. You can go to school or you can get out of my house. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm
This
going to
was
school.
who again? Dad?
My dad, yeah.
Biological dad?
Yeah. So the logical thing to do was go to school. So I went to school. Cops were there waiting. And then they proceeded to, arrest me. Of course, most of the day was spent in the office. I wasn't actually arrested or taken off campus until lunchtime so that it could be like a fantastic scene. And then, then I was arrested or, taken to juvenile hall, process, all that like fun stuff. I was there for a month and a half going through, like trial or trying to figure out exactly what to do. Got a lawyer, fought it. I was able to get off on what's called a 790, which is deferred entry based on this was not an act of character, but just a one-time mistake. So you have to plead guilty to all charges. And then if you mess up anytime after that, you have to take the full sentence at whatever it is that you were charged with.
Let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Is that why you have your shit together now?
That's part of it. Cause definitely before, like I said, I wasn't the best kid leading up to that. And I joke that was probably the best thing to get arrested for, because if out of all the other things I was doing, if
You
I
got a real rap for having a strap. So he got street cred.
Yeah. No, because that was the only thing I was doing that could be mistaked as I was just messing around with my friends. And so like even the judge or my attorney was like, 20 years ago when I was a kid, this would have been a fucking joke. But
Yeah.
because zero tolerance laws, like we have to do something about it. So they, made a big deal about it. And then, like I said, eventually I was able to, get off on house arrest and probation and do all that like fun stuff. But at the time I was doing, and I didn't learn right away, because even when I was on probation, I would do stupid things. And then my final like turning point was one time I was not at school when I was supposed to be, which is not good when you're on house arrest. And
So you can be on house arrest, but you still have to go to school?
yeah, so like on house arrest, you can have designated areas that you can go, so you call in and out.
Did you have like one of those
yeah.
trackers?
Mm-hmm.
So you could go within how much of a radius?
Well, if you call out, you can go
wherever.
because they can't track it based on it's not like GPS. It's
They just trigger an alarm when it's outside of the radius. Right?
yeah, and so it just works like it's actually so they charge you for that, by the way.
How much does one of those
per day.
cost?
So being locked up costs money per day as well. But
You mean it costs money to you?
Yeah.
How does that work?
So they say you have to have this, and for the like anklet and then the base, I was paying $45 a day.
That's like highway robbery, dude.
Yeah. So that just goes under your like restitution
how
or your
long?
bill or like whatever.
However long you've been sentenced.
Yeah.
Well, I know, but like,
Well,
how
so
long
for
was
me,
it?
so mine was pending trial. So like, it ended up being
How many days?
it's just about 2 months.
So 45 times.
What if you can pay for
60?
something like that?
Oh,
They take payment plans.
Really?
Yeah, for sure.
so you spent $2,700. That's a cheap Rolex, dude.
Yeah, for sure.
You spent a Rollie in the pin.
But instead, I got an anklet. So there you go. Yeah.
Nancy, cut this as a segment.
Yeah. Just
Instead of buying a Rolex,
yeah.
the boy got an anklet.
Yeah, there you go. Different form of jewelry. I'm
Dude.
not that flashy, so I can hide it
Street
with my
cred.
pants. But
The girls want to paint on it.
oh, for sure. Yeah.
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 You know what that reminds me of is that movie with Shia LaBeouf, Disturbia.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever saw
It's
that
a good one.
movie.
You should check that one out.
Yeah.
You
It
guys
just
should check
reminds me
that out
of Rihanna,
together.
the song. Just
Megan Fox is in it. Shout out to hot Megan Fox. But yeah.
It's yeah. But so similar to like in the movie where it's like, oh, so they have a base in the house. One of the things they didn't touch on was like like he was playing video games and shit like that. Like you can't do it. It's supposed to be like being locked up at the house. So like, you can't like even the house. Most of the, like they were like, oh, you can't have the internet. You can't be like on the phone.
How do they regulate that?
Well, the machine will interfere. So like if you're on the internet or you're streaming something for more than a certain amount of time, then it would potentially take to call in and out. It would disrupt the signal. So like
What machine?
the base that the anklet would talk to let know I was in the radius. So they put a modem in the middle of the house or like wherever in the middle of the property. And then so like if you were talking on the phone for too long, it would disrupt the signal until you hung up and you had to wait for a certain amount of time to pick it back up because I wasn't supposed to be on the phone. So everyone else in my house was also inconvenienced because
Yeah, I was
they
gonna
couldn't.
say.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds terrible. Like
Yeah.
all your family has to go through that too. It doesn't matter where you live.
Yeah, for sure.
And how
Um,
old were you at this time?
17.
So you weren't even 18,
No.
and you had just been taken to basically court,
Yeah.
tried with having a gun at school and shooting 3 kids, 2 kids with essentially pellets or BB gun,
Yeah.
really. And because of just how there's zero tolerance laws,
Yeah.
you got 2 months of house arrest and probation, for which you had to live like basically somebody who lives in 1980s.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
And then they also like those types of things, like because like I said, it's supposed to be like you're still locked up. It's like house arrest is supposed to be like you're still arrested.
So what was the worst part of that?
House arrest or
Mm-hmm.
that was better than being in juvenile hall or being locked up. I guess.
I asked what was like the worst part.
I honestly like
Nothing.
no.
All right.
I was like I was like appreciative of being home, different than like
Well, so okay, maybe we should dissect. I'm so sorry. We'll get to you.
No, I enjoy listening.
Have you heard all this?
I do know, yes, most of this.
Okay. Some of this might come out for
Oh,
the first
sorry.
time. So you were. How did you go from being in a place where you've just been sort of a troublemaker, but maybe you weren't so bad? I don't know what other stuff you did. But you went from being that person to appreciating the fact that you were in house arrest at 17 years old. Most 17-year-olds are not like that.
Well, so I mean, obviously there's development for that. So
So what took place?
so when I was locked up, I mean, there's times where you're obviously alone, so you're a little bit more like reflective, and obviously like getting out wasn't like, oh, I appreciate it. I'm a new lease on life. So it was like, oh, this is better than where I was just previously. And then of course, like obviously it was like, all right, well, I'm over this. And then, like I said, I was even doing stupid shit like while that was happening, thinking like, oh, no big deal, I got off or whatever. So it wasn't 100% like turned around then and like, oh, I'm so thankful that I am no longer in that situation, because I was still in the middle of the situation until,
Of course.
I was cleared. Like the whole point of the house arrest was like, oh, pending the decision for the trial. So I was on house arrest until they made their ruling.
Whether or not you're going to go to jail.
Well, whether or not I actually got the 790. So the 790, which is the deferred entry, which is where you have to do, so you admit or plead guilty to all charges, and then you serve whatever they want on high level probation. So it's like, all right, cool. So I did that. They
So
approved
house
it.
arrest was pre-probation.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then all probation is different. So like, it's not just like, oh, probation's probation. So like mine, because of, I guess, my offense was, I had, even while after I turned 18, had curfews when I could and couldn't be out of the house, how frequently I would have to check in or test, plus going to like, assault management, anger management, counseling for a certain
So
amount
you
of
had
time.
to go through all of those?
Yeah,
So was that partly why you got that shifted perspective?
definitely not.
No.
No. My counselor was like, I don't feel like you need counseling.
He's usually the one that gives the counseling.
So I'm confused, because you go from saying he's the one that gives the counseling to then being on house arrest. So were you someone who didn't behave, or were you someone that knew how to behave and always chose not to behave?
I was someone that did what I felt was necessary. So like anything that I did wasn't necessarily like, I never did anything maliciously. And so my like troublemaking started when I was probably, I don't know, 11 or 12. And I was selling knives at school. And the reason that I did that wasn't because I wanted to be bad, or wasn't because I wanted to give other kids weapons. It was because I knew that my family didn't have money, and if I wanted something, I had to get my own money. And so it had nothing to do with like being good or bad. It was just a means to an end. And then like things progressed from there where it was like, all right, selling, different things from, weed to knives to, cars or other equipment, or going into someone's house and taking stuff as a means to an end, not because I wanted to hurt or harm anyone else. When eventually that's obviously what I was doing, was putting people out, but I didn't see it that way.
So you've actually committed some serious stuff. Just kidding. Don't answer that.
Oh, I wasn't,
Anyway, point is, that's crazy. So you just chose to, I guess, do what you thought was right to make sure that the survival of you and your home was there.
It wasn't necessarily right. It was what I thought I could do or was necessary. You know what I mean? So I didn't see it as right or wrong. It was just like the way.
Gotcha. But what about these actions of where you're like, taking a BB gun to school? I mean, that's not necessary in any way.
Definitely not. But I wasn't doing that for monetary financial gain. I was just fucking
I
with
see.
my
That's
friends.
what you're saying.
And
So
so
it's constraint to monetary or financial gain.
Yeah. And
Gotcha.
so like, and then even with like the BB gun issue, it wasn't like, obviously there was some bodily harm, but I wasn't maliciously out to get them. And they were people that I considered friends. So it wasn't like, oh, fuck this guy. Like, it was a joke. And that was one of the things that they continually brought up in trial. I was like, oh, if he does this to his friends, it matters what he would do to his enemies. So yeah, it was good times, I guess.
Yeah, that's quite a journey there.
Yeah,
So what were you
sure.
doing in high school?
I was goody two shoes.
Very nice.
Yeah, no. For me, I was just like the middle ground child in regards to school. Like, I wasn't popular. I wasn't a dork. I just wanted to make sure I got straight A's. That was the one thing that I felt like I could control in my life was my grades. Because it's funny because like we had a very similar background growing up in regards to like
Not
our parents.
how we acted, apparently.
Yeah, not how we acted, but the situation in which we grew up in. And so for me, like, I wanted to make something of myself because I wanted to get out of the situation that I was in. And
Can you share what the situation was?
So growing up, my parents were both drug addicts, so they both did meth. And it probably started when I was, I'm going to guess like 5 or 6, somewhere around there. And we would have like cops in our lives all the time. My parents, they would beat each other up. They were in and out of like rehab. And then we would go and like bounce around. Like, we were lucky to actually have families that would like take us in. So if we had like, it was either you go to a foster home or you go with your family.
Yeah.
And so we went with our family.
And what age are you talking?
I feel like it was probably 6 years old or somewhere around there, like when it started. But like, it's funny because I think when they first started, they're great parents. They loved us to death. And we would have like amazing birthday parties and everything. But I don't know like what the turning point necessarily was for them in regards to it getting like heavier and heavier.
So did you suspect that they were always doing that? And then
Honestly, it was more of a like, I was just naive to the situation. I never wanted to believe it. And so like sometimes our family would say like, like the reason why they have, spots on their faces because they're doing drugs. And I'm like, no, I think it's just, they're just sick. I don't know why that happens. Or like, they wouldn't do that. But then when I got into high school, I was living with my dad. And I would find like pipes and stuff, and then I would like smash them because I'm like, oh, well, if I smash him, then maybe he'll stop. But that just pissed him off. They never did anything to us.
Yeah.
They never harmed us or anything. It was more just like anger towards each other. But it was awesome in regards to like finally growing up. My mom had gotten clean and she's been clean for years, and we've built a relationship since then. My dad, we don't have like a very communicative relationship, but I still like love him. I don't know if he's stopped, but it was more of a like functioning drug addict is what I would say. So I saw like those types of things happening, and for me personally, I just never wanted that because I saw the repercussions of it. Because you can either go off the deep end and say, well, my parents are drug addicts, so I'm going to be a drug addict because that's the life, or you can take it to another level of like, wow, I don't want that. What can I do to change that? And so that's the perspective, like the approach like my brother and I had taken.
So up until high school, you were just growing up with parents that seemed very normal, did stuff that all other parents do, but were abusing substances that were definitely harmful for their health, but also for the environment in the house at times. But at the same time, they were very functioning, as you said.
Yeah, so like my dad, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. She had like occasional part-time jobs. My dad was a machinist, and he did that for years. Oh God, like 20, 30 years or something. But he was always like, I just remember him always up working on cars. I'm like, God, he has so much energy, and he has abs, and he's just shredded. But that was just like a thing. I'm like, oh, well, my dad just does that. Like, he just has the energy.
Yeah.
I don't know why he does, but he does. But we definitely were very poor growing up. And it was like trying to like, oh, the electricity shut off, or, oh, we're going to get evicted from this place. And so just an unstable environment.
Yeah.
And so that instability made me seek and crave stability.
So how did you go seek and crave stability?
I got good grades. That was the one thing. So like going to school.
So because the home situation wasn't good, you decided to get your game up in school, study hard, get good grades.
Because I figured that the only way that I could make something for myself was like I had to create it. And so I was a saver. I got a job at a motorcycle place when I was 14 years old. And I just started working there, and then I would save my money, and then like they would borrow money from me to help pay bills.
Parents.
Oh,
wow.
And then I'm like, okay, you're gonna pay me back. Yes, I'm gonna pay you back. I'm like, okay, well just keep a log of it. I'm like, oh God. But yeah, so like when I was in high school, I actually lived with my high school boyfriend at the time with his parents. So I had a boyfriend. He was my first boyfriend ever, right? We were dated the whole journey throughout high school. And I lived with...
Kept you away from shooting kids.
For sure.
I lived with him and his parents.
Too soon?
No, it's all right.
Okay.
I was going to say that this story could get worse. So it just depends on hers, not mine. But.
Oh my God. But yeah, so I lived with his parents, and then, oh God, where did I go from that? We ended up actually breaking up. And then I moved in with my aunt at the time.
And then you were going to college at the time now?
Yeah, so I went from high school to college. I was going to college, and then I first was going to be a doctor. I was
studying.
wanted to be a doctor. And then I was doing it, and I was in my first year, and I'm like, oh my God, I do not want to be a doctor. There's just way too much work in this. And I don't want to graduate and be a doctor by the time I'm 30. I would prefer to have a life before then.
But the truth be told, I am so scared of like needles and blood. I pass out.
A lot of people do.
Dude, I pass out. Vasovagal right there. Oh my God. Anyway, sorry.
So I decided to take the nurse route. And then I did 2 years of community college, and then transferred over to a university to get my bachelor's of science in nursing. And then I was ER nurse for 9 years. And then we opened a gym. Yeah.
That's way too fast for this podcast. Are you shitting me? Come on now.
9 years later, boom.
Yeah.
Bam!
Well, I guess we better wrap up. Slow down there. We'll come back to you. So where are we at on yours? You go from now you're. What's the verdict?
So they approved the 790. So.
Is he on the run still?
No.
Okay.
Well, it's
they
funny
know
because
we're here.
Yeah.
the funny part is when we had like met at like our first date ever, and I'm sure we'll get into this.
Sure.
I remember him like telling me all these things, and I'm like, holy crap! I'm like, I can't even imagine you like that because you're such a different person. Like even he just shared a picture on Facebook.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine you like that. Honestly, I was looking at you. I was trying to picture it in my head. I'm like, huh?
If you look at the recent memory that he had just
It's on
shared,
Facebook, though,
like
right?
you look at him, and I
remember
was
seeing
telling
this.
him,
You used to at some point be that big.
yeah.
Then you got that big or that small.
No, she was on Facebook. I
Facebook.
shared a memory from, and this was like after I had made some changes in life,
Yeah.
and she was just saying that like physically I don't look that much different, but the demeanor's is significantly different. So you
Yeah.
can see like me as a different person or different being.
The energy,
Yeah,
like
for sure.
that he
Still looked
exudes
like
in
young
it.
Timberlake.
He does
Yeah.
he does for sure.
You get a shot of that. Oh yeah, look at that. I'm green and sexy. Okay, I'm done. No sound effects on this podcast. Not yet. Okay, so you decided then when to like kind of take care of your health.
My health. Well, first of all, I think it had to get worse before it got better for health.
Okay, so let's go down where things
Yeah.
got worse.
So, the verdict for the BB gun incident was 12 months of being on high level probation. So I did all that. Was
What does that entail?
That's just what did bi-weekly check-ins with a PO. So piss test, show up, and then all the counseling, all that like fun stuff. And then also being back in court to make sure that nothing happened. And the whole point of that is to make sure that like you are a good person, so you don't break. So like you don't use, don't break curfew, don't do all that stuff. So they set very strict rules to see that if you're gonna abide by them, because the whole 790 is that like, hey, it's not an act of character.
So you
it's a
were basically
misjudgment.
put through a contest prep.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But to
Yeah.
prep for your life.
Yeah,
To get it back in your hands.
for sure.
Do things that you definitely didn't want to do, but knew needed to be done
Yeah,
for you to get out of the situation that you put yourself into.
yeah.
Good on you for taking responsibility of yourself, man.
Well, it definitely wasn't like
Mr. Peterson would be proud. I don't know if you know Jordan Peterson.
no.
Do not.
Yeah.
It was definitely not like it. Like I said, it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna do good. I just said like, all right, I make it through this, and then once I'm in the clear, I'm fine. And so, I did have a couple like close calls that helped me like turn it around. One of the times, I was racing while on probation. I got pulled over.
Car?
Yeah, so I was racing in a car.
What kind?
It wasn't like a fast car. I was
Just going
driving
fast.
like an idiot. So I had a 1990 Nissan Maxima. So have you seen Menace to Society?
I don't think so.
Oh,
But I'll look up the car.
yeah.
You keep talking.
So I had that car, and I was driving through not the best neighborhood with some very unsavory music, super loud. 1990.
Oh, 90.
Older.
Even
Old
back,
school.
man.
Yeah, the box.
90s.
For sure. There you go. The
Ooh,
top
that thing's
box.
sexy, actually.
Oh yeah,
not
for
gonna
sure.
lie.
Yeah, with the ARE spoke rims. There you go.
Now check that out. $3,000 will get you one of these right now.
Yeah, for sure. I got mine for like 500.
Wow.
He's really good. He's had like a ridiculous amount of cars. If you are ever in need of trying to determine how to figure out what car.
Well, my girl just needed a car,
Oh.
so we didn't get it. So maybe we'll,
There you go. Yeah,
we'll
we can help
utilize
out.
your services.
Yeah. So it was all black with the ARE rims, just like on there you go, like over in the corner, like on Menace to Society. Limo tint windows because that's necessary.
Well, of course it is.
Yeah.
Subwoofers?
Of course.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice, dude.
with
I like the way you roll.
Yeah, with a tape deck and a 5 CD changer because that was
A
appropriate for the year.
1990 model? What
Yeah.
year did you have this?
I had it from probably 2003 to 2006 or 7. And so I got pulled over. That was in 2004 when I got pulled over. And like I said, not the best neighborhood. So I was over by Lincoln, just by Four Corners. I got pulled up behind Green Cat Liquor. I was asked to get out of the car, guns drawn, all that fun stuff. Probably because one of two things. In that neighborhood, there's not a lot of white kids. So they either assumed that I was white and I was over there for not a good reason, or they assumed that I wasn't white. So I had a hoodie on with my hood up and, my music playing loud. Plus I was
Why would it be
racing.
bad to be white?
Because if you're over there and you're white, you're probably doing something that you're not supposed to. So like buying drugs or whatever. So so they asked me to get out of the car. I got out of the car, turned around, took my hood down. That's the cop was like, oh, I think he was surprised that I was white because you could see it in his face, like, oh, that's not what I expected. So then he sits me down, handcuffs me, pulls up my record or my name. Lets me know, hey, you have a Fourth Amendment waive. I'm like, yeah, for sure. That's obviously part of being on probation is you have to waive your Fourth Amendment rights, which means that they don't have to have probable cause. They can search you for whatever reason. Being on probation is probable cause, right?
Come close to the mic.
So he was like, like you waived your Fourth Amendment rights. And I was like, yeah, I know for sure. He's like, so, I can search the car. It's like, yeah, for sure. And if he would have, it would have been, definitely the end of me. I had stolen property in the car as well as weapons. So, definitely, would have not been a good situation, but he, sat me down and talked to me. He was like, what are you doing? I didn't really have an answer for him. And he was just like, get out of here. So he let me go. And, that was probably one of the first times I was like, I should probably change
Get my
what
shit
I'm doing.
together.
Yeah.
Because you just got off,
Yeah.
even
And-
after being in trouble.
Yeah. And while still, like I said, still on probation. So like if he would have found anything or turned me in,
That's
then,
it.
Yeah.
What's that, strike 2?
25 years, three strikes.
That was,
strikes on
that
a
was your
single-
third strike?
No, so they
That would have been?
they would stack them. So I got 4 felonies as a single offense. They don't do this anymore, but you can strike out on a single offense. They used to.
Oh, so because you had 4, you were like
3 strikes
and 1.
Yeah,
You were
for
like
sure. Yeah.
home plate, dude.
Well, yeah, 1 at bat and you could strike out. With
Are
that,
you sure that all of this is true? Because look at Justin
I
Timberlake
know.
telling me
That's
all
what
this
I
right
was-
now.
I tell
I
you,
don't-
he's amazing. And then you hear this, you're like, this is all of this stuff is.
I can find it so hard
Who
for your
made
like
him?
motivational part of the world to just be like, it's Justin Timberlake. Come on, everybody. Are you shitting me? This is not real.
Yeah, but he just got a PhD in music, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
Um,
Not to downplay your story or
No,
anything,
no.
but
sorry.
But no,
Kinda make
like
light of
all
it.
of these things like has made him who he is, and like all the insight that he is able to unleash and help people. It's because of everything that he's gone through. So.
and you'll only find it at Blossom Media Studio.
That's right. So,
Love it.
and then, so like, I was able to, after that point, successfully get off of probation. And then high school didn't end in a normal fashion for me because I was arrested. I was locked up. Then I was on house arrest and I had to go to continuation school. So by the time I was cleared to go back to like normal school, it was pretty much time to graduate. So I went back to a school in my district that would take me. And they were like, well, we don't know what to do, so you can just have your diploma. So I at least got my diploma. And
What
so
a good deal.
yeah, so they were just, I
You
mean,
don't know what to do. Here you go.
yeah, well, so I was like, because like they have their ways of like, oh, like we need to make sure that you have enough credits. Like I had enough credits.
From college or something? Or?
No, like going to high school. So like,
That's right, because all this happened senior year, so you were already basically there.
yeah.
You just had a little way to go.
Yeah. And so like all of senior year was pretty much shot. And so they were like, oh, your entire high school career was good. And when you're locked up or like in your juvenile hall, they do have schooling. So they give you credits if you don't like get in a fight. And so,
Wow.
so like you technically got credits this year.
That sounds like a low bar, but I bet it's not.
Yeah. And so it was like, oh, well, like you technically got your senior credits like through that. And then same with the continuation school. I went to
Yeah.
continuation school and they were like, basically show up and, whatever, same thing. Don't get in a fight and we'll release you to go back to regular school. And so by the time they did that, all those places gave me credits because I didn't act out while I was there. So it was like, all right, like you have the credits, but you also don't meet our criteria to graduate. So like, what's fair? So they were just like, all right, well, here's some tests and see how you do. And so I passed the test and they were like, all right, well, come back in a few weeks when school's over and get your diploma. I wasn't able to walk into all that stuff because when you're expelled senior
Yeah,
year, that's
makes
not
sense.
that's not an option.
That's a privilege
Yeah, for sure.
for us people that don't get shot by BB guns.
Yeah.
Just
well,
kidding.
Well, the ones that got shot were able to. I wasn't. It was the one shooting. Yeah.
The one in
They felt
front
for
of the
them.
gun
Yeah.
lives forever.
There you go.
It's one of Kendrick's songs.
And then so I after stopping high school, basically I started working full time, and that's kind of how I straightened up. And it wasn't necessarily because it was a decision. It was just if I was working all the time, I wouldn't get into trouble. So
So what kind of work?
construction. I did residential remodels, and so I did that for years. It was me, my dad, and my brother had our own company, and so we did that. And then
What kind of physical shape were you in at this point in your time in the story?
I had a interesting, I guess, like growing up. So I weighed the same from the time I was probably 11 until I graduated high school. So I was like a chunky adolescent. And then as I grew, I stayed the same. So I was about 160 pounds. And then when I started working construction is when my health started to go back in the opposite direction because my dad was kind of the mindset of like, oh, if you work like a man, like I don't care if you have a drink, right? So I would come home from work and I would drink, and then that got out of hand super fast. So I started drinking excessively, and by the time I turned 21, I was at the point where I was probably drinking 20 plus beers a day if I was working. If I wasn't working, it was far
During
exceeded
work?
that. What? Most of the time, not. It started as soon as I finished, though. Like, I would finish, I would hit a liquor store. And, like, I started growing facial hair when I was, like, 17, 18, so that I could hit a liquor store after work, and they wouldn't card me because I, like, pull up in a truck. I'm a construction worker. I have facial hair. And they're like, you just look like you had a hard day. And so I would just walk in and, like, play it off, like, it's rough out there. Like, oh, yeah, here's a beer, whatever. And then, and so that was my way of, like, not getting carded when I was younger. And so I, sorry if I got anyone in trouble for that one. No, just kidding.
It's a little late,
Yeah.
but never late.
yeah.
Right?
But so I did that. I would drink on the way home, and then once I got home, I would just continue drinking. And then it got to the point where obviously like we'd run back to the store, drink even more. So that kept up for years, and then obviously like you don't make healthy food choices when you're 20 beers deep. So that didn't make anything better. And so I put on like from 160 to about 245 pounds. I ballooned up from drinking and eating fast food.
Mm.
And that was about the picture that you saw there. That was not quite my heaviest, but pretty close.
Oh, I gotta find it again. Here it is.
And so got a lot heavier. And then
So this is about what?
me right now, that's me on Sunday. And so right now I weigh 175.
This is 210.
Yeah. 245.
245. That's
Yeah.
a lot of weight.
Yeah.
You're not that tall.
No.
Man, that must have been hard for you to move.
Yeah.
I remember I was 185 and I'm 5'5" and a half.
The
That's
half
a lot.
matters.
You
The
know?
half matters.
Depends on who you ask. Man, I remember when I was like edging 190. Oh, I would like look down and I'd feel like my roll right here, and then I couldn't just be out of breath
Oh, yeah.
all the time. I was like, wow.
And your pants like cut in. You're like, oh, this.
I was like,
Look
this,
at
this has to change.
Underwear is all rolled up because my fat is eating it.
Yeah,
Dude.
dude.
Yeah.
Hard
It's cute.
times.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Mighty
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So the biggest thing for me is my mom has battled with weight my entire life, and I got to the point where, similar to like that. So I was like, oh, let me see your tattoo. And I took my shirt off. My mom was like, are those stretch marks? I was like, excuse me? Like,
Your mom, you don't say that.
Well, I know my thought was like the kettle calling the pot black. Like, you're big too. What the fuck is that about? But it was humiliating for me, as well as like I had friends that would like, dude, what the fuck happened to you? And so that enough times was like, hey, look, maybe I should do something about this. And
You
then
got shamed into getting better.
yeah, and then I think the final, like, the straw that broke the camel's back is I had a friend that was laying into me pretty hard, and I was like, whatever, like, basically I had enough, and he was like, all right, I'll drop it if we can go to the park, and you can do, like, a single pull-up. And I was like, bet, let's do this. I work construction, strong as shit. So we went to the park, and I couldn't even hold myself on the bar, like, let alone pull up. So,
What?
yeah. So he laughed for a while. And then after that, he was like, do you want help?
What a good friend.
Yeah. So,
You guys still friends?
yeah.
Nice.
And so he helped me. He was fresh out of prison, so he had some pretty good workouts. So he would come over a few times a week and was like, hey, look, I'll meet you after work. And we could throw something together. We got weights from the swap meet and just kind of made it happen at the house.
Yeah.
And, like, there was no big shift on, like, you know what, I'm going to turn this around. It was just like, all right, I'm going to meet Brandon after work, and he'd be pissed if I showed up drunk, so I should probably not drink till after we work out. So I would work out, and then I would drink, or I would drink while we were working out. But I wouldn't drink on the way home.
Gotcha.
So, that was a massive calorie reduction. And then after that happened for a little while, he was like, oh, you should, like, learn how to eat a little bit better. So I started cooking in, like, the crock pot just to make it easy. So it's like, oh, like, after we work out, we'll have this. It'll be done in the crock pot. And then, so it was just a decision after being humiliated to be a little bit better every day. And I've kind of stuck with that for the last 10 years.
So 10 years ago, you started saying, I'm just going to do a little bit better than I'm doing today, tomorrow, and then the next day, and the next day. And here we are 10 years later.
Yeah. And that's kind of that's our big focus when we work with people now. It's just like, first of all, one of the things is like, hey, look, like, what does your perfect day look like? And is there anything from your perfect day that you can do tomorrow? And then if there is, then do that. Like, why wait? Because most people think like, oh, like, when I'm retired or when I get this, like, this is going to be my ideal life. Why wait? If there's something you can do, like, and most of the time people, it's simple. It's like, I'd like to wake up early and be able to read. Well, why can't you do that tomorrow? We'll have to work. So whatever.
Go to bed earlier.
Yeah. So I just started thinking like, all right, what can I do tomorrow to be a little bit better? And like I said, that's how we help people. It's just like, hey, look, because most of the time if you do that, it's sustainable. If I were to, at 245 pounds, try to be who I am or what I am today, no way. I went from, like I said, drinking, close to 30 beers a day, eating fast food probably 98% of my meals, and not caring or exercising about anything to, owning a gym, being in, great physical shape, cooking like 100% of the food that I eat. There's no way that I would have done that. Like, all right, this is my goal.
I guess the point of the story would be, at least for me, is that it took you 10 years to do it.
Yeah.
And most people think it's going to happen right away.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think for me, I wasn't trying to do it. Like, a lot of people start out and they want to know how long it's going to take because they have the end in mind. For me, it was just like, I'm always going to get better. And I know now, being in the best shape of my life, I'm still going to get better.
Mm.
And so for me, I made a lifelong commitment to improve every day rather than I want a six pack or I want to step on stage or I want to have $1 million. Like, who cares? If you have a target, then like what happens when you hit it? But if it's progressive, then you can always get better.
I love that. That's awesome, man. I'm glad you've made it this far. I can't wait to see where you're going to take it.
Thank you.
That's badass. Let's get on to you, Sam.
Okay.
So catch me up to the point where you've started college and you became a nurse.
Yeah, I'm like, God, I'm trying to think, like, I'm boring. I was just, for me, it was definitely like,
That's not what her friends told me. So careful. She's crazy.
for me, as he's talking about like goal oriented and having like a focus,
Right.
I definitely would always have a focus. And so I didn't ever learn to like celebrate the wins. So I had gotten into nursing school and it was like, okay, this is great. I got into nursing school. Okay, well, we'll celebrate, when I'm a nurse. And so then I went and it was 2 years of nursing school. It was definitely challenging. I had never been in a hospital before, no experience. So, and a lot of people, they're like, oh, I'm a volunteer at a
12-hour
hospital.
shifts.
Mhm.
Feet hurt.
And so
My mom's a nurse. I totally understand.
yeah,
I grew up in that house.
for sure. And so I did the school. I graduated. I was pretty at the top of my class with graduation. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll celebrate once I get a job. And then I only decided, I'm like, I'm just going to do one interview. And at the time that I had graduated, it was just getting to the point where it was getting really difficult for people to find jobs for new grads because nursing is like a super popular, high demand career area now.
Yeah.
And so I did one interview and I got the job and I was like, okay, like this is great. But for me, like I never felt like happy or fulfilled or whatever it is that you want to call it. And so I did nursing and I thought, okay, like this is it. And at that time I was married previously. And
How early?
Wait, what?
How young were you? Oh,
No,
sorry.
I had met I had met my ex-husband when I was 19. So
This is the high school boyfriend?
No, we had broken up. I do long-term relationships.
Oh, that's all
apparently.
she does. That's good for me.
Good for you, dude.
Yeah.
good, it's
I was
good.
I was the opposite. Before I met her, I hadn't dated anyone for more than a year. Like 11 months. I was like, you gotta go.
You're talking about the construction days?
Yeah. Well, even after the construction days, like, I just couldn't do it, and mostly
No.
because I was never myself in the relationship, so I could only fake it for so long.
Bold of you to admit that.
Yeah, so I had met my ex-husband at 19 years old, and we had dated for I think it was like 5 years, and then we got married. And even like that relationship, I was always a people pleaser, and as he says, he was never himself in the relationship. Like I felt like I was myself, but I never I almost gave up everything that I had enjoyed doing, and I was just like a go with the flow type of person. And I'm like, well, like anything that you do, it's not that I don't enjoy it or don't want to do it. Like I haven't experienced it, so let's just try it out. And he would, at 19, he was 24. And so he was able to drink and go to bars and all those wonderful things. So I tended to always be like the designated driver. I'm like, oh yeah, just call me, no problem. He had a drinking problem for sure. And we, even like right before we were going to get married, I was like hesitant. I'm like, I don't know. He seems to drink a lot. I'm like, it'll be okay, because like nothing was ever really bad, but he was very verbally abusive to me. And I just figured, well, this is a horrible way to go into a marriage. Well, if anything's wrong, like we could just get a divorce, I guess. Like who goes, and gets married and thinks that?
Well, it's not horribly wrong. I mean, more than 50% of people think that way.
It's so sad though. Like it is so sad.
It is sad.
And so like for me, I was like, well, we already planned the wedding. We already have this. Like we'll just go through it and like hopefully things will get better.
Wait, how did the wedding happen?
How did it happen? Oh, like I had paid for everything? Or?
No, I mean, like, wasn't it on TV?
Oh, yeah. Oh, God,
What?
that's right.
Is this a real podcast today? Like, you just people playing with me right now? Huh? Justin Timberlake over here telling me about how he's shooting up schools, and I got this girl telling me about getting married on TV.
Well, she didn't tell you about her first boyfriend either.
He committed suicide. Yeah, but I wasn't with him.
Yeah, like when you made the joke about the BB gun, I was like, well, that relationship gets worse.
Wow.
We weren't in a relationship at the time. No, he missed me. No, I'm just kidding. No, we weren't in a relationship at the time.
I see. So your first boyfriend, to more accurately state, committed suicide after you guys had already been in a relationship.
Yeah. I was like years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel bad for you now.
Oh my god.
If it ever
Just
ends.
kidding. I'm totally kidding. I just have to put the full circle on it,
for
you know?
sure.
Oh my goodness. So I was obviously ER nursing at the time, and there was a doctor at my job. His wife did hair and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I forget what it was called. I don't know if it ever actually like went on air. I think it might have aired like once or twice. But it was basically for people who were like plain Janes, and they wanted to do these makeovers on them. And so they're like, oh, like, would you be willing to do it? And I'm thinking like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna get my hair done for free and my makeup and all this stuff. No, you get like 50% off. And it, to me, when it was like 50% off, I'm like, I feel like this is a normal price. This is still pretty expensive.
They mark it up 50%.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes, totally. But yeah, so I ended up getting married on TV, and it's so awkward. Like when they record you for TV, like obviously everything's like super staged, and they expect you to say it in a certain way. So like they're like, okay, so answer this question, and then you say it. They're like, what if you just like rephrase it like this? And then even like on the wedding day, like it was a little.
Can we find? Is this online somewhere?
I don't know.
It was on TV, and it was so classy that
What was it on? I'm gonna do a quick search, but keep telling me the story.
they had, and I was like, what? I didn't even know they made this.
It
This
was
sounds
like-
awesome. They had a margarita machine.
Oh yeah. Oh.
What was the name of the show?
Oh God. It was like.
You remember?
I don't, honestly.
Dang.
I know. I think it was like an HGTV, or it had to have
If
been
it was
something like
HGTV,
that.
that's definitely on YouTube. You need to find this.
I will have to find it.
You'll have to find this. Anyway, we'll come back to that. So you got married on TV because you got a 50% discount
Yeah.
for being basically something that they could show.
Well, then they're like, oh, try it again. And then she breaks down crying.
Yeah,
Like,
I had
that was perfect. Do it again.
So they had said something because like things were going wrong like the day of the wedding. Because like days of the wedding things go wrong, except our wedding day was like perfect. Nothing went wrong. And so I had cried, and they're like, that was so good. Do you think we could redo that? I'm like, are you fucking with me right now? Like,
Wow.
and they just like looked, and
So it was
they
just like
realized.
reality TV staged.
Yes, it was basically like a stage reality.
So you got to
TV.
be a Kardashian for a little while.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Justin Timberlake.
And it was so
Kardashian.
funny because like
So I found her.
it was filmed like three different
You saw
times
the wedding.
too.
You're like, oh my God, I need that girl.
Oh my God, it was so bad. It was so bad. Because I remember like, so they do a makeover on you, right? And they do like 2 different makeovers. And they're like, okay, show us what you want. And then we're going to do like a different style as well. And I remember them doing both. And I just like looked in the mirror and like, I wanted to cry because I'm like, this is horrible. Like, what am I paying for right now?
Yeah.
And so it was really hard because I'm like, I don't like fucking either one. And you want me to pick? And they're like, well, just say like something that you like about it. And then, something that you would change. I'm like, okay. This is, now I'm acting and just being dishonest at this point right now. So I have a hard time not sharing what I want to say.
So you had the whole first wedding basically be something that was completely unagreeable for you, and
Yeah, so I felt like I wasn't even myself. Like I was, but I wasn't very good at communicating.
what was
the
your
things
physical
that I
health
want.
at this time?
I honestly, like, before at 19, I had a personal trainer, so I was working out at the gym and I loved it. When I met my ex-husband, he wasn't as into the gym. I don't even think he ever went to the gym, but he liked outdoors and hiking and stuff like that. And so we would do things like that, but I ended up like giving up the gym because he wasn't into the gym. And so I never got super overweight. Like I definitely had a little fluff. And then once we ended up getting a divorce, I'm like, screw that. I'm going back to being doing what I want to do.
Yeah.
Because I almost felt like I lost myself in the relationship.
So I think we're at a good point in the story now where I'm hoping the two of you meet.
Oh yeah, this is like years later. So I was divorced for probably 2 years, and then we had met. So 2 years we had met.
How long have you guys known each other?
Almost 3 in November, right?
Mm-hmm.
How long of that have you been married?
It'll be 2
2.
in November.
Yeah.
2 years this November.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Awesome.
We set our wedding date 2 days after, or
2
2 weeks
weeks.
after meeting each other.
Ah, okay. Well, nicely done.
Uh,
Looks like it's going so good so far.
Well, and this is like me thinking I'm never gonna get married again ever. Like after I got married, I'm like, screw that. I am never gonna get married.
Yeah.
And so then I went through the whole like dating phase, and I'm like, this is great. And then you just get over it because nowadays. It's
Were
all
you
those
dating in the
apps.
time of the apps now?
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Of course
like
you
it
were.
was probably a year after I had gotten divorced.
What was
the
your
apps had come
experience
out.
with the apps? I'm so curious. What was it like being a woman on those apps?
It was kind of degrading in a way, I guess. There was like it was POF, which was Plenty of Fish, and then
Tinder, of course.
No, I didn't do Tinder.
What? That was like the first one.
No, I didn't. I don't think I really knew
Okay.
about that one. I think the only one that I had heard about was Plenty of Fish. I think that's the only one I
Okay.
had tried. And so it was just crazy because like what I had discovered is like people, they just, they ghost you. And so there's so many options nowadays. That's like, our one of our poor members, he hates the dating apps.
Because
Because
you
it's
can't
like,
give them up at the same time. It's like having,
yeah,
he's
it's like, it's,
I hate drinking. I'll have one.
It's
yeah.
an addiction, man.
Yeah, for
Yeah. And so it ends up being like, okay, well, I'm going to go on this date and, oh, this seems good, but what else is there? Who else can I meet? Is this really the one? I don't know. Let me go try out some more people. And so then people, they're never satisfied because they're like, well, I didn't like this one thing about this person, so I'm going to move on to the next person. And nobody ever communicates.
It's like I got an inbox full of people. Why would I put up with your shit? No.
Yeah. No, for reals.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, especially as girls, they probably get a lot more messages than guys do, generally speaking, unless
And then there's like creepy, creepers.
there's this is like the thing where it's like there's a certain group of people who are always going to get like the majority of the women because they're better looking and they're able to play the game better, and the majority of the guys are just basically like stuck trying to catch any fish, right?
Or there's the catfish.
And then there's the catfish.
Oh my God.
You got catfished?
Oh, I remember.
No. I remember. We had a member, and he's so cute.
A member.
We had
Yeah,
I thought you were
the
saying
gym?
I remember in a silly way.
No. We had a member. And he after getting out of the Marines, he had gained some weight, and because of that, his confidence was low. And so then he came in and he was working with us for a while.
Yeah.
And after he started to regain some confidence, he was put himself on a dating app. And then he got the courage to, go on his first date.
Yeah.
And so he comes in, he's like telling us he's super excited. It's like, oh, it's the first time I've been on a date in years. Super pumped. He's like, but I reverse catfished her. He's
What
like,
does that mean?
He's like, I put a picture of myself, but it was before I started coming here. So we helped him lose,
Oh.
So he's like, so she likes me for fat me. So when I show up and I look like this.
What a smart guy.
Yeah. So he was like, he was all proud that he reversed catfish. I was like, that's the.
But it's funny because I think like
What was
she
the
almost
reaction? Did he
catfished
tell-
him because he like wasn't into her. I was like, oh, sorry.
What was the
Well, I think when she met him, she was like, oh, have you been like, did you lose weight? Because I thought you were heavier in your picture. He's like, oh yeah, like I might be doing some things. And she's like, oh well, you look really good. Like,
Yeah, I just lost a bunch of weight. I took just stopped eating for a week.
I know. Oh my God.
Wow.
But that was super cute.
Very cool.
But we did have, there was, sorry, this is like
That's
super
okay.
side note. I had another member tell us, and this is horrible in regards to like dating apps. So in regards to the whole catfish thing, she puts this like picture because God, some of these girls on Instagram, holy crap, like you look at their faces and you're like, that is filtered as fuck. Like you do not look like that in real person. Like who
Yeah.
are you? And so she had put like this amazing looking picture of herself on Instagram or on the dating app. And so she wanted to meet the one guy, and he's like, oh, I have this club. Like, you and your girlfriends can come down to the club, and, like, we'll meet, and it'll be an amazing time. Well, she obviously didn't look like the picture, but her friend looks very similar to her and apparently is a lot prettier. And so she had her friend pretend that it was her.
It was a different person entirely.
A different person entirely.
So you go
So
on the
that they
date for
could
me
go-
so that we could still talk.
Yeah, so they all went so he actually met her,
But they were talking to somebody else.
but
Yeah.
so it was like a group of girls.
So how did they coordinate that story? What
I
an
have
elaborate
no idea.
lie.
I have no idea. I
Man,
can't even
people
imagine that. I'm like,
Do not stop surprising me.
well, yeah, because I'm like, how sad is that she doesn't love herself that much that she has to do that? Like,
But this is one of the members.
no. This is
Yeah.
a member's coworker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
If it was our member, she'd have confidence. No, just kidding.
Right? That's true.
We drilled that into them.
Yeah.
for sure.
That's good.
If not, we revoke their membership.
Oh my goodness.
We're selective.
Yeah, quite so. Wow.
I know. People are crazy nowadays. It's crazy. It's
So
sad.
So tell me how you two met.
So it was November 2016. We were at Lake
October.
Tahoe. Oh, October. You're right. Sorry. October, like first, second, or third. Was
Yeah,
it
this
or
is a
the end?
deposition. Get your facts straight.
I know. God, sorry.
Yeah.
October. We got married in November. But yeah, October of 2016. And we're at a Spartan race. So the OCR race, obstacle course race. It was a
Okay.
world championship, Lake Tahoe. I'm originally from Torrance, which is 2 hours north of San Diego, which is where he's from. And we were mile 7 of a horrendous race. It was exhausting. The hills, the elevation.
13.
How long was the
13? I
race?
don't know. It was long. It was that's
It was mile
like
13.
16.
It was
How
16
many?
miles.
Oh, that's right, mile 13.
16-mile race. Obstacles all over.
Oh God! And
How
so we're on
long
the
does it
bucket
take?
carry.
It depends on the person. Yeah. There's people like super fast that can do it in like
4
2.5
hours.
Yeah. That race, I think the fastest, was like just under 4. So it was like just under 4 hours. And the longest person's out there for like, 12 to 16 hours. Like,
Wow.
ridiculous.
And how long did you guys take before you started flirting?
I feel like that race took me between 6 and 8. I don't remember.
Still a lot.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think I finished just over 5.
God. I don't know how you kept going.
It
Good
was,
on you.
It was exhausting. So at mile 13, I was incredibly delusional, and
Because you have the running?
just it was the hills,
Everything.
and the elevation.
Because
Like,
you're running on the ski slopes in Tahoe. So
I mean,
like,
you got to be a little bit like looped up with hormones because your body's trying to fight so much pain, releasing all kinds of chemicals to make sure that you don't like
and it's
collapse.
It's October in Tahoe on the ski slopes.
And you have to
they
swim
make
in the
you
lake.
Swim.
so yeah.
Yeah.
So you're just tired. You're drained. You're just like, when will this end? You don't know how like long it is really. You don't know where the turns are. Like they put the markers, but I feel like it's a lie.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm going up on the bucket hill carry. He's going down. We're both resting at the same spot. And I just like look over and I'm like, he's really cute looking. This guy's a good looking man. I'm like, he kind of looks like Justin Timberlake. And he just had these like gorgeous blue eyes. And I was like, should I say something? And then I'm like, well,
The voice in your head has a nice dialogue.
so I was like, should I say something? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, fuck it. I'm so tired. And what's he gonna do? We're on an obstacle course race. And
Who is
so-
he going to run from?
Yeah, like
And
what's
run
gonna
too.
happen? I don't even know. So I just yelled at him across the way. I was like, has anybody ever told you could be Justin Timberlake's brother? And he just literally like looked at me and just smiled. I don't think he said anything.
No, I get nervous.
And so he just went on his way. I went on my way. And
You just
then-
walked away?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, nothing.
And
Got
then you
nothing.
and you just followed him?
I just laughed. No, well, he was
Well, of
far
course, because
ahead.
it's a race, so we were going the same way.
Yeah.
No,
So, but he was ahead of me. And so it was hours after the race, and I was walking out of the venue freaking freezing, and he's coming in half naked, and I was with my girlfriend, and I was like, oh my God, like, doesn't he look like he could be Justin Timberlake's brother? And she's like, yeah. She's like, you guys should take a picture. I'm like, yes. And so then I yelled across to him, and I said, can we take a picture? And he said, yeah. And he goes, well, if you post on Instagram, you have to
You gotta
tag
tag me. That's how people do it. If we get a picture together, then I get in touch with you. I don't
Yeah.
even have to ask you for your phone number.
Exactly.
I'm a slide in the DM,
Oh,
boy.
She did.
I even slid further. I know.
Oh my
I
god.
know.
Balls deep.
No.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
This is a PG podcast.
I don't know
I'm just
about
kidding. Very cool.
that. But yeah, so we literally probably conversed for like 3 minutes after the race, and then I posted a picture, and
She said, "Will you marry me?"
I tagged him in it, and there was like the little monkey emoji with like, oh no, he did the monkey emoji with the eyes covered because I did hashtag hot damn. And then
Is this the two of you in the
just
picture?
no, it's the
No.
three of us. You'll
see.
find it on there.
Not mine.
How far am I
Yours.
gonna have to scroll?
I feel like I've probably reshared it more recently. On
Okay,
there. You won't
let's
have to
check
scroll
it
too
out.
far.
But continue.
But yeah, so I had tagged him. He commented like with a little monkey covering the eyes face. And then I was like, of course, as a girl.
Is this it?
No.
Oh, no. As a girl, you have to do your research, right? So you got to like look at his
Stalk him on
Instagram,
Instagram.
stalk him. Like, what is he all about? And so I see like his profile picture and it's like him and this African-American woman. And I'm like, and then I see like on his actual profile, it's
Let me
like,
guess. It was Christina with that dreads.
No. But
Shout out to Christina with the dreads. I haven't just talked to you about it yet.
oh my God.
I see you.
But then she sees me with Malachi, which is Chrissy's son.
Yeah.
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 Because he's half black.
That's right.
And so I was like, is that his girlfriend, his wife? Like, what is that? I'm like, well, I would hope.
What is that?
What is that relationship? And so I'm like, I would hope that he wouldn't like ask to exchange and be like friendly like that if he was in a relationship. And I'm like, well, I'm
You'd
just
be
going to give him the
surprised.
benefit. I know, exactly. I'm like, oh, but especially if he's telling me what his Instagram handle is, I'm like, that would be pretty bold. So I hit him up in the DM. And then we started talking, and then we kind of like, we literally talked for like 2 weeks to a month through Instagram.
And then she's like, it must be hard being a dad.
Yes, that's how I approached it.
I was like, oh, well, I'm not a dad. What makes you say that? She's like, oh, well, then whose kid is that? She's like, oh, that's my nephew. She was like, well, you don't say that into your post. I'm like, why didn't I feel like I had to, like, I didn't know I had to disclaim.
You have
like,
to be clear.
Yeah, I was like,
Yes.
I didn't know I was sending mixed messages. Like, I just posted a picture of me and my friend, and then, yeah, my nephew is, biracial. I didn't know that I had to disclaim, like, oh, that's on my homegirl, and this is the nephew.
There you go.
I mean, come on. That's I
you
feel
got
like
confused.
you have to. Oh, for
but you found
sure.
it. You know what's funny about? I was thinking about this the other day. Why people do these obstacle races or races that involve such a long amount of time and effort, and then I got to thinking, well, nothing's really has a point, but something that will definitely happen in a race like that is you have to be surrounded by all these people that started the race, and at one point or another, you're gonna need each other's help. And what better way? And you would make some of the most deep friendships you could find on those courses because you've gone through some crazy things together that test not just you physically, but definitely mentally, and trust and love and all that comes out, pouring emotions all over, I'm sure.
For sure.
And wow, what a wonderful experience.
Which is why it was funny. We got married at another race.
Like,
and
biggest race.
so yeah, we met at the Spartan World Championship, and then we got married at World's Toughest Mudder, which is another world event. But that was part of the guy that married us, his talk or speech was like, oh, there's no bond greater than the one made in the mud, and so that was part of his thing because it was a tough mudder, so it was perfect.
Well, we all end up in the mud, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That means we all die.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah. So I guess it makes sense that we're all bonded by that.
But yeah,
Because
like,
we're all part of this planet and we're all here together. That's great.
but yeah, that's one of the things that originally got me into the obstacle course racing was just the mentality. Because I'm like, that sounds horrible. That sounds really hard. But like, if I can do that, I can do anything. And so like when you do your first race, then it ends up being like addicting. Like, well, can I get better at this? Like, I want to
Fair
be able
enough.
to complete the obstacles without failing them.
Yes.
And then the people that you meet, like everybody starts together, and then you have like the uplifting vibe. Honestly, I mean, there are some poop heads. but-
Debbie Downers.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, it's just challenging yourself mentally and physically, and then learning how to grow from it.
And so the two of you start dating on your Instagram fling. And where does the gym come about?
About 3 months later,
Yeah, so when we first
3 months into dating.
3 months into dating.
Yeah, we decided to open together. So that it didn't actually open, but 3 months into dating. So when we first met, she was saying that one of the things was like, oh, I'm in the process of opening a gym, or that's something that I wanted to
Why
do.
gym?
Because obstacle horse racing had changed my life. I had gone on a Spartan cruise. So it was a OCR cruise. It was like the one and only. They don't even have them anymore. But that was one thing that I did by myself because I couldn't get anybody to do it with me. And I'm like, well, I'm a nurse. I'm friendly. I'll make friends at this cruise. So I went on a cruise by myself and I met amazing people. And I thought, oh my God, like this would be so cool to recreate the feelings that you have on race day. And there's no facilities that people can train at. It's all like outdoor training. So I wanted to open a facility where people could do that and like come together. And at the time, one of my old trainers, he had talked about like, oh yeah, it'd be nice to open a gym. He used to run GNC stores over in Australia. So I was like, oh, he must know about business. He had successful stores over there and then came over here. And so we would get together. And like for me at that time, I'm like, I don't know, like I'm not a trainer. I don't want to be a trainer really. So I don't know what my part would be, but I just want to open it. Like, can I just open it and run it? And so we would get together, but the get-togethers were like, oh, let's come up with a business plan. And I would be the one on the computer trying to figure something out. And I'm a nurse and I have no idea about business. And he would just be like, okay, let's have a beer. Well, what about this? Did you look up this? And he was just no help whatsoever. And so I just never saw any future going anywhere.
Mm.
So I saw like when we first met, she was talking about how excited she was and that she was potentially like on the verge of like making a move. And then after seeing her like, oh, we're going to meet again. And so I was thinking like, oh, you guys met, like what progress did you make? She's like, oh, well, like nothing. And then so I was like, oh, we'll meet again. And then I met again. I was like, oh, well, like what happened? Like, because if you're having all these meetings, you should be making progress, right?
Sure.
And there was little to no progress. And obviously, like, that was frustrating for her. And so I was asking her, I was like, oh, well, like, if the people that you're working with aren't serious about doing it and you are, there has to be a point where you have to let them know, like, I'm going to do this regardless of whether you're involved, like, with or without you. And if you're willing to make that, like, hardline statement and move on without them and you wanted to do it with someone else, would you be down to do it together? And she was like, yeah, why not? So we put together a business plan, and then we actually talked to one of the people that she was talking to before, and similar conversation was like, hey, look, like, because he's, well off, and so I was like, oh, he could be potential funding. And so that was one of the things that, like, for her, it was struggle because she was talking to him. He's like, oh, like, if this is good, I'll invest in it. But he was never actually, like, making a move or saying
People
yes.
say all that stuff all the time.
Yeah, and no, like, yes or no. It was just like, oh, like, this is a good excuse to hang out with somebody that I really like hanging out with. Is like, oh, well, yeah, we could talk about it. So we had to sit down and talk with him. I was like, hey, look, like, we're going to move forward. So, like, we need a yes or no. And then, like, it doesn't hurt the relationship. We could still hang out. But, like, we need to know if we're going with you or if we're looking for somebody else.
Fair enough.
And he was like, oh, like, I respect that. And I respectably have to say, like, no. I was like, perfect. Good. That's all we need to know. Like, are we doing business here or somewhere else?
Were you disappointed?
Yes and no. So it's one of those things where it's like, oh, this could be a great opportunity, right? But hindsight, it's probably a lot better. At least for me, I thought it was cool or better. We learned a lot.
Well, forget the hindsight. What happened then?
So then we were, obviously forced to look at like, okay, well, what are other ways of funding? Because for him, he would have been a partner and or an investor. And so for us, like never having run a business without like, all right, like the best way to fund this would be an investor. And so we started to educate ourselves on how we would fund a seed company.
What was a business plan entailed?
Oh,
So-
our first business plan. Was
So
crap.
yeah, in the very beginning, it wasn't much of a business plan at all. It was more of like a vision board typed out because we didn't have any vision. We didn't have any like
No
business
numbers,
experience. So it was just like,
nothing.
this is our idea, and he's like, that's cool. Like this sounds.
Were you guys watching a lot of Shark Tank those days?
No.
No, that was not the homework we were doing. So we were just like, all right, like this is what we'd want to create. And so it was more of just like, hey, look, like this is our idea, and it's like that's cool, but like, how is it gonna happen? And so we pitched it to people or talked to people that we looked up to. It was like, hey, look, like, what do you think of this? Like, that's not a business plan. Let's go, what is it missing? And so every time we would present it to someone and they would potentially point out a flaw, rather than just being like, all right, cool, I guess that sucked, we would ask them like what's missing? Why isn't it good? And if it was someone that we were looking at for a potential investment, we would ask them like, if you're not willing to invest, one thing, like why? And then do you know anyone that could help us either refine the business plan or that would be interested? And so we never took no for an answer. We just took referrals basically instead. So it was just like, all right, cool. And then that led us eventually down to getting funding from a CDC loan. And so most of it was like, hey, look, what do you think? Like, no, I think this would be a better option for you guys, but you need to fix these things. And so just constant revisions and never taking no for an answer.
Did it ever come to a point where you're like, you know what, I don't need their suggestion. This is the way I really want to do it. Was anybody objecting to any of those kinds of ideas?
No, I think that the scariest thing for us was we had found, because a lot of them are like, well, how much is rent going to be? How much is this going to be? I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't have a place. I don't have no idea.
And it's vastly different, like depending on the space that you get. And so it's like, oh, well, how much is it going to cost and how many square feet is it? So like you can have a concept, but that's different than like having an actual place.
Right.
And so we had actually found a place because he was like, oh, well, if we're serious, obviously, and we're looking for funding, like we should know if we're going to get a place and where we're going to get a place. And apparently it takes like months to find one.
Yeah.
So he had found a realtor in probably March because February we decided to.
How much funding were you guys looking for?
180, I think.
180K to get a building on lease or buy?
No, like that would include capital equipment.
That was for the full like launch of the company. So that would include buying equipment, getting the building, potential remodel or conditioning the space, as well as working capital for the first 12 months.
Wow.
And so we had found a facility and we're like, it's so cheap. Like we can't pass up on this because other other like places we saw, like they were getting snatched up like that.
And they were more expensive. So it was
Super
like
expensive.
we were looking and we were thinking like, just like as a ballpark, it's like, all right, like we were hoping or be lucky to spend like, 125, 150 per square foot on a commercial lease. And we were hoping to get anywhere between 3,000 and 5,000 square feet, depending on the per square foot cost. So like if it was lower end, we'd get a bigger building. If it was, higher end, then we'd get a little smaller building. And so everything around that price range was like disappearing. Like our realtor was like, it's gone. Like before we could even schedule to go see it, it would disappear. And then the few places that we did go see, like zoning in San Diego is weird for gyms. So like they are everywhere, but there's a little bit of like back door, like, oh, it's this kind of a studio, or you have to call it something else on the like business name. But doing that is risky because if you do that and someone comes and reports, they can shut you down. And so like some of the buildings that we were at, they're like, technically you can't have a gym here. But
you can have a boutique studio.
Well, yeah, they're like, but
something.
you can have an instructional studio. So like if you call it an instructional studio or if you call it something else, like that's cool. But I will let you know if you sign a lease and someone says that you're a gym and they come inspect it and they think it's a gym, we will kick you out and you still have to pay the lease. It's like, yeah, why would I fucking lease from you?
Yeah, sounds like a terrible deal.
Yeah. So it was either they were disappearing or it was a situation like that. So we're like, we don't want to put ourselves in that situation. We ended up finding the building that we're currently in, and it was a great deal. It was under $1 a square foot, so it was less than we wanted to pay, and it was 4,300 square feet. So it was like on the bigger end of what we were looking for, and it was cheaper than what we thought we could spend. And our landlord was like, look, like it'll probably go really fast. So I would say like we scheduled to meet and we just throw in a letter of intent. We're like, well, we have no way to make this work at all. And she was like, yeah, letters of intent takes a while. So like there'll be some negotiations. We'll go back and forth. So like, when do you think you'll get funding? We're like, beats me. Who knows? But like as soon as possible. And she was like, all right, well, it'll probably take about 3 months. So you have 3 months to get it funded because by then you'll probably have a building. So we're like, all right, well, let's go
up
for
until
it.
this point, you were just basically bluffing.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you were just saying that you have this idea that you were going to bring into light, and you found a realtor who was willing and able to go and find you a property, start the process. Meanwhile, you have no money. You don't even have an investor. And you certainly don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, but we like, so yes, I guess you would say bluffing, but full disclosure, like I told her, I said, look, one, this is concept. Two, like we have no money. Like this is everything we're trying to do. And she was like, all right, like I love it. And whatever I can do to help. And so we weren't like, we didn't hit her up and we're like, oh, so I'm going to launch a successful business and you're going to be lucky to land me a building. It was the opposite. We're like, hey, look, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't even know if you're the right person to talk to. And she was like, all right, I can help you out. And she did. She helped us out massively. And she was actually one of the people that ended up like getting us funding, because it was like, hey, look, we're still looking for funding. We don't know what to do. She's like, here, call my friend over here. Maybe they can help you out. And so her connections ended up leading to us getting funding.
How did you meet this person?
Google. So I just like started looking on the internet for people that I would want to talk to or trust, and put out like phone calls. Hey, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm doing. And same thing, like full disclosure to all of them. So some people are like, oh, you're an idiot. And then other people were, like, oh, we can talk. Or they just wanted to know like, all right, well, like these are my fees. I'm like, all right, well, told you I don't have any money. So like, whatever. And for her, she's like, hey, look, like, it doesn't matter. Like, my fees are for you not an issue because I take them out of, you know, the other side. So like, you don't have to pay me. And as long as I find you a good deal, I'll get paid. So like, who cares?
So you found her on Google.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we got the building before we got the funding,
And so who did you get the funding from?
the CDC.
Tell me what's that all about, and can somebody replicate that, and how would they do so?
So the CDC is awesome. So they do what I guess. So they're small business loans, but they don't necessarily consider a small business loan. So a CDC helps with seed funding. So there's a difference between business funding or like a business loan and funding a seed company. So a seed company is before a startup. It's at concept to launch. So that's what we were. We were concept to launch, which is probably one of the harder things to fund because you don't have a track record. Like a business loan requires
Revenue.
yeah. And so you have to show proof of concept. They're like, hey, look, this is going to work and it has been working because of this and it's potentially scalable. Or if I have this money, I could do this with it. Where like us, it was just like, if you give us money, we think we can make something work, which is different. So it's potentially harder. So the CDC works with people like that. And one of the reasons that they're willing to do that is because...
Clarify the CDC again, because it's not the Center of Disease Control.
No, and I have no idea. I think it's the...
Let's look it up.
Yeah.
What do you think it is?
California something, maybe?
Yeah, I don't even know. Yeah, that right there.
Well, it's a small business and finance loan,
Yeah.
but doesn't tell me what CDC stands for.
Yeah, see? It's elusive.
All right.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, certified department company. That's
Development.
legit.
Oh.
That's legit.
All right. Certified development company.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Good to know.
So that's what we got. But one of the reasons that they're willing to do, seed or starting up is because they are federally backed up to 70%. So like when you go to a bank, the bank doesn't have the same backing that they would have. So they're potentially a little bit more willing to take the risk because if we were to go under, they would still get 70% of what we asked returned by the government. And so for us, and for most people, when they go to apply for the style of loan, they will lean more towards approving it if you can fund 30% of the project, because then 100% is covered. So for us, we got $180,000 worth of funding because the total cost of the project was just over $200,000, and we were able to bring 30%. So it was like, hey, look, the total project cost is, $220,000. We have $40,000. We need this, and they're like, oh, the numbers work. The total cost of the job, and we also had a business plan that backed the numbers. So it wasn't just like, that sounds like good numbers. They're like, where did those numbers come from? Those are all made up because we were a seed, but they still they were made with reason. It was like, all right, you're going to charge this. This is how much your rent costs. This is how much you're going to have for employees. This is how much your membership is going to cost. This is how you see scaling.
So basically, your business plan is breaking down everything that you would need and pay for in the running of this entity, which is a gym.
Yeah.
And the more details you have, the better the chances you have of getting approved for a CDC loan.
Yes. And then the more, if you can relate it to something that is proven, the better it is. So you can be detail oriented and still be irrational when it comes to
Evaluation.
Yeah. Whereas here it's like, all right, I'm going to charge $500,000 per head and I only need 2 members. All right. That's
Right.
Nice. So it has to be detailed, but then it also has to be comparable. And so what are the services you're providing and can you actually charge for that?
And neither of you in the story I heard went to business school. No. So how did you formulate a business plan?
YouTube.
He's really good at learning from British people.
Yeah, so I looked up how to do a business plan, and I found some guy that does tutorials with a British accent, and I was plugged in. I was like, yes, you teach me. So
how long was that journey?
Realistic. So the typing out of the first one in regards to building the Excel spreadsheets and all that stuff for all of the financials was probably, I don't know, almost a solid 48 hours in a single weekend. So just straight in the room with headphones, bathroom breaks, and eating, and that's it.
And he would make the formulas for the spreadsheets.
So where did this sort of mindset of, going on YouTube and putting the 48 hours in to figure it out come from? Because, we were talking about this kid who's shooting up the school.
When I have my sights set on something. No, just kidding.
That's funny.
Yeah, no,
That's good.
So after school, or like after I graduated, I told you I did win in construction,
Yes.
and my dad is very big on being a man or a person of your word, or making someone else fulfill a promise that you give. And was more appropriately when it was him. So like he would sell a project. He's like, we're gonna do this. And then he'd come back, he's like, we gotta fucking figure it out because like, I told these people that I could build them something, and like I have no idea what's going on. So, like I learned at a young age like problem solving, and so like we did that even like growing up through like my dad was very big on like, hey, look, you have to figure out how to get this done. And then when we started working together, it was the same thing. He would sell projects, and like they would go over ideas with customers, like, oh, this would be awesome, and they're like, can you do it? I've never seen that. And it's like, yeah,
Sure.
it could be done. And not we could do it, like it could be done. And then he'd come back, he's like, we gotta like
Figure out how to do this.
they signed a check.
You'd be surprised at how much software is sold in the same way.
Yeah. And so when I was young, I didn't like do anything with it, but I designed a tool for cutting tile because of something like that, where my dad sold a job that had tile inlays that weren't necessarily done very often. So I took apart a whole bunch of other tools and then put them together to make a different tool. And I used that to create a really cool bathroom, and then a whole bunch of other really cool remodels after that, because we were able to do things that other companies weren't. And so I developed that style of mindset in that situation where it's like, hey, look, we have to get it done, figure it out.
So dad was a big influence on problem solving and being hard on you. And that made you really, kind of shine through in these moments where you want to start your own journey of your own business.
Yeah. So
with your newly Instagram girlfriend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think he was probably better at making problems and seeing that we solved them. Not.
So dad got you into problems, and then you had to solve them.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Quite the teacher.
Yeah.
So then where does the journey take from here? And you've gotten the CDC loan. I'm sure it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows right after that.
Well, actually, it was funny because we were big on like, all right, so as soon as we got the building, we're like, let's announce that we're opening on a certain date. And so she's like, well, we don't have any money. Like, well,
where did you get the $40,000, by the way?
I took a loan out of my 401k.
Oh wow!
Because remember, I was the goody two shoes, and I saved,
saver.
so I had great credit. And then we put the reason, one of the reasons why we were approved is because we were in a low income area, and we put me as like the main business owner. So as a woman owned business, they're more likely to give you
in an area that needs jobs. Like, yeah, we'll start a business in an area that needs jobs and is run by a white woman. Perfect.
Wow. Well, good strategy to play, my friend.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And so after we got approved for all that, but like, so we didn't have funding, and we're like, all right, we're opening July 7th. And then like July 7th was fastly approaching because we made the idea that we're going to open in February, and July we opened. But probably the last week in June, we still didn't have funding. Mm-hmm. So we were like,
we didn't get the funding till like September, till after we were opened.
You've already started the CDC process, or
yeah,
no?
Yeah, we had basically just got approved in the beginning of June for the CDC process. And so we were like, all right, how's this work? And they're like, all right, so you're in pre-approval. And so we're going to go through, I'm like, does this take like a few hours? I'm like, probably like 12 weeks. Like, are you shitting me? Because I have a grand opening in like 3 weeks. Like,
and we need equipment. That's like 50, 60 grand. They're
like,
there.
yeah, that's not going to happen. Something needs to happen.
So what happened?
Well, we didn't get the money.
We did not.
Not by then. But we ended up launching the facility with, the amazing people that we know coming together. And so we were like, we were able to borrow some money from her mom to get some of the equipment. So what we did was we told the lender or the people that were getting our equipment was like, hey, look, if we give you a deposit, how much can we get? And they're like, all right, well, you need this much from a deposit, and then we can give you this much stuff. We're like, golden. So we asked her mom, can we borrow it? As soon as the funding comes through, we'll give it back.
Can you give me some concrete example?
What do you mean?
Like how much was?
20,000.
Okay.
So like, hey, look, can we borrow $20,000 to put up for the equipment so we can get rigs, free weights, a few other things just to make the facility like look like you're supposed to work out there. And so
where did you go to source this equipment?
Fitness Armory.
Okay, it's like a wholesaler.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
And so they ended up taking care of most of our equipment as well as the flooring And so, or like, you know, like bring in the flooring. And so but also like, mind you, I didn't have any business experience, but I ran construction jobs from the time I was 17.
Right.
And I was on my first job site when I was 12. I ran like, while in high school, I ran my first, like my own first remodel. I was 13. So I was familiar with running jobs and getting remodels done. So I was like, I could do this. So
He's really good.
So with the building, it was easy to remodel because that was my background. So I was just able to do a lot of the work myself, and so that was super cheap. So like
Right.
we did a lot of like, I just like was mostly me, and then like we have, like you can see in the background right there, we have awesome graffiti in the back. And so that is, all of that work was donated by old friends. So we didn't pay for any of those murals. They came and they dedicated almost 2 weeks of painting, you know, pretty much by hand to put those murals up. They were just like, hey, look, you give us a place to paint, and you pay for the paint, and we love what you're doing, so we'll come out and do it. So we gave them the setup and the canvas, and they hooked us up. And then same with some of the other stuff that I'm not the best at. So like all our audio, video, things like that, security cameras. We had friends that were willing to donate their time. Same with like buffing out the walls. I had a friend that used to run a professional painting company. Like I said, I have connections because that's what I used to do. So I was like, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. I'm strapped for cash. What can you do? And most of the people were super nice. Like, you know, I'll take care of you because I love what you're doing. And then same with like our turf. We had a mess up on the number for the turf on how much we thought it would be to get it installed.
Huge mess up.
And then last minute we were calling everyone like, what can we do for price? What can we do for price? Like minimum this. Like, dude, we don't have any money, like any money. And so one guy was like super cool. He was like, well, how much do you have? And like, to give you like an idea on numbers, it was like everyone, and so it wasn't like a crazy amount, but we don't have any money. Like $2 is a lot, right? So we're like, we need this turf done. Everyone's coming like, it's going to be like, you know, at least $2,500 low end, maybe closer to $4,000. We're like, fuck, like we don't have that. So then we called one guy and we're like, dude, like we didn't put this in our budget because when we talked to the guy that sold us the floor, he told us that like we could get it up for a couple $100. So like a couple $1,000 versus a couple $100. He's like, well, what do you have? We're like, $300. And he's like, I'll do it. It's like, what? Are you serious? And he's like, yeah, I'll do it. And then to make it even better, he was on vacation with his family out of town. He left vacation, drove back to San Diego, installed the floor, was like, pay me later, left. And then, so we obviously, everyone that like pitched in, we took care of them the best we could. We trained them. We did all kinds of stuff afterwards to like give thanks, but there was no monetary exchange. So we were super lucky and able to get the facility open. So when the first day we opened, we didn't have any weights. We just had the rig. We had everything painted, and we just did a big fucking party.
Wow. You know what it sounds like to me is that you've had issues for sure, even though you're really good at kind of curving the problems that you've had into the solutions that you came up with. I'd like to point out that it sounds like you were able to be persistent enough on the problems that you had that you found somebody who was willing to work with you no matter what the situation was, which I think is worth noting because too many of us, and I think I made a post about this yesterday, it's too easy to give up. It's just too easy to just stop and say, I guess it's not going to work, and then just sit on it. And it seems like because of the time pressure and the crunch and all that pressure of you want to have this launch, didn't it come to your mind ever to say, we're going to postpone the launch or we're going to push this out?
I'm like, what are we going to do?
So I was like, hell no. I was like, even if the building is raw like it is now, we'll have
we'll throw quinceañeras.
No, I was like, the launch date's the launch date, and like if we have nothing and the building is as we did when then it's just gonna be a building reveal. Like we'll tell everyone, they'll come here and we'll say, look, this is where we're gonna do the gym. Come back in a few months when it's fucking built. So like,
so what were you doing up at this time when he was figuring out how to get the building up in order?
I mean, I was there helping. I had gone
feeding me.
I was nursing, and so I was
so you
driving.
were doing part-time nursing or full-time nursing at the time?
At that time, I was full time.
Full-time nurse, working 12-hour shifts.
2 hours away.
You started now 2 hours away?
She was in Irvine still.
Oh, boy. Which one?
Kaiser Irvine.
Oh, that used to be next to there's a Hogue there. And before
Yep,
that,
still
there
across
used to
the street.
Before that, there used to be Irvine Regional Hospital where my mom worked.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I used to live right across the street from there at the Oakland Apartments when we moved here to this country.
Nice.
What a small world.
Right?
So you were a nurse and you were trying to spruce up the building. I mean, it's amazing that you guys were able to just find solutions. Have there been tough times in the relationship for the two of you when things are not being able to be sorted out and you're finding these challenges? And
Oh no, honestly, and
no,
no,
none.
none.
Mm-mm.
So and
I
that
don't find that to be true.
well, and so honestly, like that is what drove us into working with couples is because of our relationship is extremely
What do you think makes it extremely workable?
communication,
Mm-hmm.
and not communication in regards to like task orientation or like observation, but more like introspective communication. Like, hey, look, this is how this is making me feel. So like if something like if she did something that potentially pissed me off, rather than like I'm pissed at you, it's like, hey, look, I'm angry because I don't feel appreciated, or I'm angry because this is frustrating me. And so like if we can always frame something in the mindset of like this is what I'm experiencing, not you did this to me, then we could change the experience.
Where did you learn that?
So part of my journey has been, I wasn't necessarily happy with who I was, and so I had always lived in a world or a life or in my head, whereas like I thought that if my experience was different, my life would be different. Like if I had more money, if I was born somewhere else, if I did something else, if my life was different, then I would be different. And then I started to play with the fact that if I could change the way I experience life, then maybe my life would be different, rather than blaming my experience on the life that I had.
Where did that come from?
Self-reflection. Probably the first time was when I was locked up, because I was released into the general population. You have to be by yourself. And
What
so,
do you do in these self-reflections? Do you write? Do you sit and just think? What do you do?
Mine is more questions. So not necessarily like spinning out of control and chasing something to the end of, like, could there be aliens? But more like on me. It's like, hey, look, like, have I experienced this? And why? What would be the reason behind it? And trying to dig a little bit deeper, or as deep as I can get. And then it allows me to communicate better. So it's like, hey, look, if I experience it, like if something makes, and like real honestly, like I hardly ever get upset anymore. Like it's just not something that happens. Because I've learned to control myself. And so obviously, like every once in a while, but she's probably never seen me like really mad.
There was only one time that I've seen him mad, and I've never seen him like that. And it was when we were at Home Depot when we had one of the
And that wasn't
issues.
even that bad. That wasn't even that bad.
I just looked and I'm like, oh, he's pissed.
So he's like that. Are you like that?
Do I get pissed?
Yeah.
No. I mean, I get when we had first started, I've definitely like calmed down, I would say. I would get upset and I just get upset. Like I was never like an anger management person yelling at people. If anything, I bottled my emotions and I didn't communicate, which is probably one of the biggest reasons like why I ended up in divorce and lost myself in the last relationship.
So how did you learn to communicate then?
Or
more importantly, where and when?
I think the biggest thing for me was just like learning about like what it is that I want and realizing that like you can't please everybody and just be yourself. And so you have to be able to communicate with somebody in order to do the things that you want, or in order to like make the relationship better.
How did you guys figure these things out? Did you look for, counseling online, maybe the YouTube method, or
No.
how did you sort these kinds of things out to even go like that direction?
Well, so in all fairness, we probably have a leg up more than most people in regards to that. Both of our parents at a young age for us were drug addicts, which changes the way that we interact with people, because most drug addicts or people that struggle with alcoholism aren't necessarily the same people all the time. And so you have to learn how to read other people when you're in a situation that is extremely unstable. And so if you could learn how to read other people, you could potentially learn how to read yourself. And so like at a younger age, we were forced to judge how someone was going to react to a situation based on what it is they were doing, how they would carry themselves, how they would respond to simple questions. And so gaining that type of insight for someone else, it makes it easier to be insightful on yourself. And so for us, it's more of just like, we didn't do counseling. We have pretty much been like this for our entire relationship. We've never really like had rocks or bumps or whatever, even in high stress situations. And it was just always keeping like our health, like mental, spiritual, physical, at the forefront. So like neither one of us will sacrifice our well-being for the other person, because we do know that if we are our best, we can give our best. And like doing anything less would be doing them a disservice. So like a lot of people are like, oh, like it's okay, I won't get the sleep that I need so that I can take care of her. But then I am not 100% to give to her. So it would actually be better and I could give more fully if I were to take care of myself. And so it started there, and then everything is just experimentation. So it's like, oh, what are you feeling? How can we eliminate that? What can we do to fix that?
And we've both been like very open since the beginning. Like within 2 weeks of talking through Instagram, we're like, we're going to get married. And so we just through talking, I think that's probably one of the things that like really strengthened us, because like most relationships, it's all like in-person meeting. And so people don't go on like that depthness or like another level. And so when you're literally just talking to somebody, you have to go further, like, how's the weather down there?
Sure.
Well,
And
then
so-
we didn't, in our getting to know you phase, we didn't do any like surveying, so to speak. Like our getting to know each other was more about like what made us happy. What do you want to do? Rather than like, how many guys have you been with? Or
So it sounds like you're aligning on values rather than past events.
yeah. And so
For
like
sure.
there was a lot of stuff that we didn't know. Like you joked about like, oh, is this the first time you heard that? Like we were deep in our relationship before we like brushed any of that. But then then there's less judgment, because like if she finds out, like if we're already in love with who each other is like in the moment,
Yes.
and we learn something from the past, then you can appreciate that whatever happened in the past made you who you are today.
Agree.
But if you are first meeting someone and you're like, yeah, I cheated on my ex-girlfriend. It's like, yeah, what a dick. Then you can judge how we're going to move forward. But like, if you know that like I'm super loyal because I've put somebody through that, then then you can appreciate that I went through that, because I'm not going to do it to you. But like, there's some people who's like, oh, once a cheater, always a cheater. It's like, not necessarily. If you've been cheated on and you cheated someone else, you may have gained something from that experience that will make you never do that again.
So the point is that you would have had to have reflected on it and found value out of that experience yourself to be able to articulate it then to the other person in a manner that would formulate, that person's thinking in the direction of, yeah, I actually didn't fuck up and I've learned from it, rather than I messed up.
Yeah.
That's how most people talk. They don't go to the depth of the conversation as to what point they're trying to make. People just try to one-up each other on the stuff that they've done or have gone through in the past, which two of you have had a very dynamic past and upbringing. Very crazy that you guys found each other, but also not so crazy because it makes a lot of sense. I don't think there would be anybody else better for you, considering you've shared similar experiences and both have transcended above them and found meaning in life regardless of the suffering that you were put through, which I think is basically what Jordan Peterson would tell you. So
Apparently, we're going to need to look up Jordan Peterson.
he's a psychologist. Yeah, he's pretty cool. I like him. He's taught me a lot, helped me introspect a lot as well. Just one of the people that I guess I like. I'd be curious to ask, who are some of the people that you look up to in terms of getting your knowledge from, learning from, outside of course, your own personal experiences in life and having the tools to introspect, which I think can't go unnoticed. That is probably number one. But what would you be?
I mean, it's so funny because we've been together almost 3 years now. And even like from the start of our relationship to where we are now, we're completely different people in regards to like how we've grown together.
Okay.
And so it's really cool to like, when we look back, I'm like, wow, like I was a different person. But we've almost like, we've grown together and we've made each other that much better. And so like when we were first getting started, I would say one of the people that we had looked up to was Dean Graziosi. We had read Millionaire Habits. And he was really good. And it was a lot of positive thinking, reframing your story.
I saw this cat with Tony Robbins recently.
Yes.
Yeah.
they
Tony Robbins
just
is another good
launched-
one.
Yes, that's another one. Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, Brendan Bouchard is awesome.
I know Brendan. He's helped me a lot with one book in particular, The Motivation Manifesto.
I've heard that one's
I've-
really good.
I've
I
literally,
haven't done that one.
I can show you two.
Is that one of those ones where it's easier to highlight the stuff that doesn't mean anything?
No, this became
Yeah, right?
This book actually became somewhat of like a
It's like a
therapy for
Bible.
me. For
Like a
me,
manifesto?
Yeah, because like if you see every page has like writing and highlights and stuff on it. Or
I got
at least
that one.
You're like the
underlined.
whole book, you mean?
The whole book. Well, for me, it was more not so because I found it important. It's just because I have a difficult time reading. I was never really a strong reader, and I never really read. So,
Feel your pain.
just trying to read is a difficult task for me to stay focused on. So having a piece of or a pencil to write on, and it helps me kind of track. And if I get distracted, I know where and what to go back to.
Mm-hmm.
But what I found a lot was nothing in there that you can't find anywhere else. It's just if you, and this is true for any really self-help book, I guess, if you can take it to the place where you're able to understand deeply where the message is coming from and are open to and receiving it, rather than letting the voice in your head that always is, yeah, but to everything that you hear in terms of advice, it all makes sense and it will click, and that's what this book really did for me when I was at kind of like the deep part of my, existential crisis and trying to climb out of it. This was a very good therapeutic book. I'd read it every morning and try to just put myself in the state to like go and figure out, because I still haven't figured out where I was going, but I was in a cycle that I needed to complete and be in. And this book really helped me a lot.
Well, then that's the awesome thing about like, any type of book that you were saying, like it speaks to everyone differently. And then in different stages of your life, you will get different things out of it.
Yeah.
And so one of my favorite, like teachings or lessons, I don't know who said it, but it was basically that you can't teach someone, something that they don't already know, but you can better help them understand. Right. And so like for that, it's always a matter of deepening your knowledge. And so you start with something and then you expand your knowledge. It's not that anything that you learn is new. It's just a better understanding of something else, or it's developing. And so it's just widening the knowledge that you do have.
Well, and like you had said, I think the biggest thing is for, at least for me, when I would start reading a book, sometimes I'm like, oh, like I'm not resonating with this right now, or I can't grasp my head around this. But then I'll pick it up maybe a couple months later because I'm at a different stage in my life, or I read something different. And then I'm like, wow, like how did I not understand this, or how was I not able to read this before? And so I think depending on where you currently are at, there's definitely books that may align with you.
Yeah, for sure. Agree with that. Because there's certain books like I couldn't read this right now and enjoy it the way I did, and it helped me then. But that's just because I'm seeking different questions now and different stages, So that's just, you have to align yourself with what, is there. And books have been really useful for that. Audiobooks as well. I listened to quite a bunch of those. Do you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to listen to a lot of those because especially like with my drive to work, I had 2-hour drive. And so I'm like, well.
Podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah.
Got into
Podcasts,
that.
audibles, all of those things.
So what's your take on, constantly digesting good content continuously?
I think that if you are actually digesting and consuming, there's nothing wrong with it. I feel like if you're just I feel like there's a huge difference between knowledge and wisdom. And so knowledge, I believe, is just things that you acquire, and wisdom is applied knowledge. And so I think that if you are just seeking knowledge and just like filling up whatever, and you don't actually get anything from it, like you don't truly understand, you don't truly consume it, then what's the point?
Why would you say that you truly don't understand?
Well, for some people, I know that there's some people that I personally know that would like to learn a lot of things, but they don't necessarily get anything out of them. And so
what if they get a mental peace out of it from knowing that there are ideas that they haven't explored themselves, but other people have?
They could, but like, what would be the point of continuing to read something or acquire knowledge if you're not going to apply it, other than, like you said, if you were just like, oh, look, someone else has done this, that's cool. Like,
depends on the type of stuff you're reading, I suppose. If you're reading philosophy, maybe psychological text, it could possibly shed light into an introspective experience, for one. And that could help you understand perhaps your situation better,
But then you are changing the experience from reading it. So then it's more applied knowledge, as opposed to just being able to, similar to like going to school and being able to pass a test, and then also being able to then operate on somebody. Like that's different. Like there's plenty of people that can read books and they can recite them. You can say quotes like this off the top of your head. It's like, that's great. But do you know what it means? Like, have you applied anything? Did you actually get anything out of it? So like the difference between like memorization and just acquiring knowledge for the sake of acquiring knowledge so that you can put out really cool quotes on Instagram, like that does nothing for anyone. If you have no idea, if there's no, and it doesn't have to, you don't have to know what it means to the person that wrote it, but if it doesn't have meaning to you, other than being able to recall it, like then I think there's a problem with consumption.
I see. Yeah, I think we could agree on that. I've found it that even if I'm not applying the stuff that I'm consuming, I find it very much therapeutic in the sense that my mind is very much able to chase around a lot of different things, and perhaps it's just me. But I would disagree, I would say, with myself on that statement. I think there's a lot more people out there that are like this, where you have to sort of correct dialogues internally and consuming content, at least that you find to be enlightening to you, at least for the topics that you're pursuing. Like for me, it's always about the balance between wanting to strive for more and then appreciating and staying, still with what I have and enjoying it. But the balance of constantly striving versus, why do anything is sort of my challenge. But it's also the challenge of a lot of other people, right? So consuming content that can consistently drive in me, and this is true with anything I consume because maybe I think about it that way. I always look for, if something in that whole 1 hour, 2 hour thing I listened, if even one thing could spark in me a question that I hadn't thought of before for myself, then that was good for me. And even if nothing came out about it, I think I got to find stuff. I think it's no different than our mind is able to, as you know, this, your subconscious mind will absorb a lot more information than it can actually process at the time that it's doing it consciously. But you never know when some of that information will come back and collect and formulate into some pattern of ideas, because essentially we're all driven by memory. So all of your ideas are not original. Yeah. They're by whatever stimulus and memory you have created, and somehow they form into an idea somewhat spontaneously. It's hard to study. We don't understand it. But at the same time, it would be too easy to say that, consuming content that you don't apply is problematic. And at least from my view of it, I would say that it's deeply needed and necessary, because it rarely very much influences and impacts what you do. Because if you are just consuming random stuff like on Instagram and it's not intentional, and at some point in your day you can intentionally consume content that you find useful, you never know where the dots will connect if you haven't put that in your memory systems.
But you're intentful with the consumption, because like there's people that aren't intentful, right? They just throw on like, oh, Spotify podcast or whatever, and it's just something to pass the time. So then they're just
in the background.
Yeah, they're just consuming to consume. So it's not intentful. There would be no difference between that and just scrolling through Instagram. So because you can scroll through Instagram with intent, you could also be on Instagram to create. So like there's reasons for that. And same with like if you're on a podcast and if you're going there with intent, then it's different. You're going there with the intention to learn and to consume, not to just mindlessly have something or to be able to recite it. And so like it's different. Like if you're doing anything with intent, then it's good. You also have to know your intention, right?
Well, I would argue that it's also an intent if you want to mindlessly recite it.
Oh, there's a lot of people. They get off work and then they're like, I just want this, or they want to.
Well, think about people that talk about like sports statistics or talk about TV shows.
Yeah. But
mindless content.
But why do they want it? Usually, it's because they feel
significance.
Like, exactly.
Yeah. Well, same with like with you wanting to know or better understand the voice in your head rather than consumption. Why wouldn't you just challenge the voice itself or ask why it's there? So rather than like trying to find an answer somewhere else, like you have the answer, you do. So like find it. It's nowhere else.
It's not outside of you.
Yeah.
The answer is within you.
Yeah. And you'll probably find it faster that way.
But I guess you would have to know the steps to introspect, which is all come back to the first pillar of what we talked about here before starting the discussion on what other people's content you consume. Number one is your own and understanding what's rattling around in your own mind.
But you only know through like similar like what is like, so for reciting quotes like Martin Luther King, right? In regards to you don't have to see the top of the stairs, the stairway to take the first step. And so like turning inside, like you don't have to know the path, but like you can still dig.
It's scary though.
Yeah.
It's very scary going inside.
Yeah, but so is not finding the answer.
That's true too.
Right? So like if like that fear drives you to find the answer, but not really. You're just teasing it.
So how does one find the answer?
Just continue to ask, right? Like most of the time that the answer to your question is behind the thing that you don't want to do or the thing you do the least, right? So like if you're continually going out to find the answer, it's probably inside. And so it's the thing that you're avoiding the most that will probably unlock the door that has the answer for you, at least the next answer, because there's no one, right?
It's like that obstacle you have to overcome. It's that fear behind it. It's like, oh, I'm so close. Oh, but it's an obstacle. I'm just going to stop because it's too hard. Or if you start going,
I guess that's what an obstacle race would also help you kind of tackle right?
Definitely.
Logistically, because you got to get over and around this thing, otherwise you can't complete.
Well, that's even like that's one of the reasons that we were both drawn to and like Spartan Race. So
Yeah.
Spartan Race is one of the few places that are one of the few.
That's one of the tough ones, right?
Yeah, but
Tough
they
Mudder and then the Spartan. I've heard of
Mhm.
those two popular ones.
but one of the things that stands out about Spartan over most other races is there is a penalty if you can't complete an obstacle. And
What's
so
the penalty?
30
Uh,
burpees.
yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
people
Mhm.
actually do it.
You're supposed
Well,
and so if you're
some
running
people do.
if you're running competitively, you're judged, and if you will get disqualified if you don't. If you're running open, like it's the honor system. So
Some people are not very
yeah.
wonderful.
but the owner or the founder of it, his mindset behind it was that in life, you may not be able to overcome every obstacle that you face, but there is some amount of work that you can do to get past it. And so, yeah, you may not be able to climb a wall, but if you work hard, you can still move on. And so, like for me, I like that.
Yeah,
And for
it's
us, like,
practical.
yeah, and even like for you, like one of the reasons that we like to work with people through fitness is because it relates to so many different things. And it's like, hey, look, like for me, accomplishing what I did physically allowed me to see that I was capable of so much in every other area of my life. And
Wow.
we show other people the same thing. Is that like, hey, look, like there's something that you may not think is possible, but if you apply yourself and you put focused effort on something, you can achieve whatever it is that you want. And so like a mental or a physical obstacle, if you show someone, hey, look, like you can get over a physical obstacle with a little bit of effort or gaining some skills, then you can also apply that towards a mental or emotional obstacle. It's like, hey, look, that's no different than when you were on that wall and you thought you couldn't do it. All you had to do was figure out the right way, or just beat your head against the wall until it falls over.
So, what are your strategies for bringing people on board? Because to get things clear, this isn't just a gym; it's more of a membership into understanding and building a relationship with the owners, which is the two of you, and sort of creating a comprehensive program that not just helps you physically with your fitness health, but also with your, other aspects of your life, sort of like the pillars, the wealth, the health, and, all of that relationship, and considering all of these things, which it seems like what you guys are trying to tackle is different pillars that people need to put up to have a balanced life.
Yeah. And so for us, I would say the biggest thing is we want to know, like, we work with all different kinds of people. The only thing that ties them all together is that everyone just wants to get better.
Yeah.
And so, and not like, oh, I want to look good. It's just like, similar to where I was at one point in my life is like, I'm tired of feeling like this. I don't know how to feel better. I just know that I don't want to feel this way anymore.
So how do you find people like that?
You just attracted them. Because, well, it's funny because, like, when you're opening a gym, like, well, what's the perfect kind of clientele you want? Like, what's your niche? I'm like, everybody's our niche. Like, that's a very difficult question. And so it was funny because as people started to come to the gym, we're like,
Not them.
we're like, yeah, no, but like there were certain people you're like, nobody is like the same. We have like 17-year-olds, we have 50-year-olds, like everybody is so different. But the one thing that we found that everybody had in common was they just had the drive to like get better.
Right.
And
And
so
it's-
it is, yeah, sorry.
we have a getting to know you phase kind of deal where it's like, hey, look, like they come in and there's an orientation, but the orientation isn't necessarily fitness driven. It's like, hey, look, like, why did you
So
walk?
this is for a new member.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, why did you walk in the door? It's like, oh, because of this. I saw an advertisement. It's like, all right, like an advertisement alone isn't going to be enough to get you in here. So like, be honest with me and be honest with yourself. Like, what about your life brought you in here? And some people are like, oh, well, I just want to check it out. Like, I have a gym. It's like, oh, so you're not happy with your gym? It's like, well, I am. It's like, if you were, then you wouldn't be here. Like, honestly, if you like, just like if you're happy in a relationship, you're not scrolling Instagram looking at women because you have one. Like, and so like, if you were truly happy in your situation, then you wouldn't be looking for a different answer. So like, what about your current situation are you unhappy with? And for most people, it's like, oh, that's a rough question. And so like that weeds a lot of people out right away, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
Because they haven't even thought about it
Yeah.
possibly.
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, well, I just want to, like, I saw you on Instagram, I want a six pack. That's cool. I'm like, that's good. They sell them at the liquor store. But like asking, like, what's the reason? You know what I mean? Like, what's the reason behind it?
The
Like,
deep-rooted why.
yeah, and so if someone knows that, like, hey, look, if they know what they want, then we can help them get it. If they don't, we can't help them. Like, how can I help you get something that you don't know what it is? If you have no idea where it is you want to go, I'm always going to fail you. And like, not that we only want to be successful, but we want to help people that know where they're going because we can do that better. Like, if you have no idea where you're going to go, we're just going to blindly shoot at stuff. Like, oh, what about this? Maybe we could do shed a couple more pounds. Maybe we could build some muscle. Hey, maybe you want to try keto, or like, I don't know, like, what are you feeling now? Like, that's pointless.
Yeah.
So
fair
figuring out like if our customers know where they want to go, and then being honest with them, I was like, yeah, I can help you get there. There's some people that they come in and we're like, hey, look, what do you want to do?
So nobody can just come to the gym to train. They have to get a personal sort of membership to work with you.
Well, even the gym now is, it's 100% private studio. There's no like walk-in customers.
Was it like that at one point?
Yeah.
For how long was it that way?
A year and a half.
Year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And what was that like?
Long hours.
Yeah.
Well, and so
A lot of cleanup.
Well, and so-
sweaty,
No,
sweaty.
Our place is immaculate. That's one of the reasons why people like to come. The
But there's a lot of work keeping it clean,
God.
for
yeah,
sure.
I can imagine, man. Gyms are nasty.
Yeah.
People just sweating everywhere. Gross, not wiping.
We
Girls
put 'em-
wearing these tiny clothes and putting all their nasty bodies. When I was a bodybuilder, I used to wear sweatshirts and like sweatpants so I could like absorb the sweat and also stay warm, but also like
Burn extra calories.
yeah.
To
Well,
But
I mean, I
a
didn't want to
buffer
touch the
of-
gym stuff. Honestly,
Yeah.
I got like rashes and stuff from like in my armpits and stuff
Yeah.
from just nothing else. It's not like I didn't
Yeah.
shower. I showered 3 times a day every
Yeah.
time after I worked out.
Yeah.
But it was just like I was like, I'm not touching some of this gross equipment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now I'm a little less hesitant, but at the same time, that's a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you went from, opening up the gym for everyone to now closing it down. What led to that decision and why?
So our decision for that was mostly so that we could better help people. So we felt that like having the facility open for everyone was creating more of a disservice.
How did the customers take that?
They weren't the happiest.
Well, honestly,
what did you tell them?
what made us tell them, or
Or what did you tell the customers? Be like, oh, by the way, you can't come here anymore.
Yeah,
you can't
well-
sit with us.
well, and so like it was an emotional decision. Not like, oh, we like had an emotion then made a decision. It was just like it was emotional to let them know what it is, because as much as we thought it was the right move, we still felt like we were letting people down. And so like we like after making the decision, I cried countless times that week, and then every time I told somebody, I cried because like I felt like I had failed everyone that walked into the gym, because it's like, hey, look, like my goal was to work with you for a long period of time, but I think that like keeping in mind our bigger vision, this isn't the right way to go. And so to look someone in the eyes and let them know like, hey, look, like we're in this together, but we're gonna have to shift the way we do this is not an easy thing to do. And so it's hard because like we believe that it was the best thing for them and for everyone that we're gonna deal with moving forward, but not everyone feels that way when you tell them like, hey, look, like a place that you consider to be one of your favorite places to come every day is no longer an option for you.
Yeah, I can imagine people would not be happy to hear that.
And so, and a lot of people, like they walk in.
But did you give them an option? Either you go the subscription route of,
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, we still work with them, and we still offer training at the facility. And so like there is still a lot of the people that we built up in membership that we still work with and we still help. And even if they don't like pay for our services, we still stay in contact and we still help them, because that's our goal. It's like, hey, look, we want to help you become the best possible version of yourself. But we were faced with the hard reality of like, hey, with a small box location, we're super limiting both for them and for us. Like we have an awesome facility, it's super clean, but we also don't have showers and we had limited hours. And so because of our small staff and our overhead, it was extremely expensive.
And how long did you live there?
A year.
Yeah. So we moved in just before we opened in June of 2017, and we moved out in October of 2018.
Wow.
Or yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when were the regular folk kicked out and the membership only came in?
Well, so that was probably about 2 months ago.
March.
Yeah.
March. So how's it been since?
It's been a rough transition because what we're trying to do, or what we're moving towards, is, for lack of better terms, uncharted territory. Like we have
Everything that we do is uncharted.
So what we want to do is help people build a lifestyle,
Yeah.
but also not doing it in person. Most of the time, people build a lifestyle with a coach that they have right there, because They need the accountability of having someone right next to them telling them exactly what to do. But we also realize that as much as that helps, it's also potentially providing a disservice, because what happens when I'm not there? And so our goal is to work with people so that they know how to live the life that they want, and they're not dependent on us. And so, for lack of better terms, we're almost working ourselves out of a job continually, because we don't want someone to be dependent on us, even the facility. And so it's like, hey, look, if when people were coming and they had the option to train at the facility, they were paying over $200 a month.
Yeah.
And so now we can give the same education, give them the same workout that they can get at a different facility that they're only paying $20 a month for. And they can come to that facility that's open 24 hours. They can shower when they go there. They potentially increase their quality of life so much more, because they're saving money. They have the flexibility to train whatever they want, and they still are able to get the education and the support from us that they had when they were in person. And then if they want, we do have clinics and other things where they can come to the facility and still do that.
So for the people that, it sounds like you're saying you're creating courses and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So what's the method behind that, and why do you still need a gym space to do that? I mean, it sounds like you just have a bunch of overhead costs now,
For sure.
and you don't have customers because you've kicked them out.
Yeah.
And you're now saying
You're so dramatic. Jeez.
Well, I'm just saying it the way it is,
Yeah.
right? I mean, am I saying it exaggerated?
No.
And so it just seems like it would be more risky, obviously.
For sure.
So yeah, what's the thinking there?
The facility is, well, one, we do use it for private events, clinics, things like that, but it's not used on a day-to-day basis. We do use it for filming content, because a lot of our on all of our training platforms, we do have workout videos. So we film workout videos. We have athletes come in and do that, so we can create that in our space. So rather than renting a studio, we have one.
So you're like a person, basically a studio for people that are in the fitness industry to come and create content, because it's hard to film at a commercial gym anyway.
For sure.
And they can potentially come over there and do their workout for their audience and have an array of equipment. Now, do you have like stuff for bodybuilders and stuff like that over there?
So we don't have.
I'm very picky about my equipment, by the way.
Oh yeah.
This is
then
functional
you
fitness.
definitely
You
would
wouldn't
not
like
fit
us.
in. No.
Yeah, I used to go to 3 different gyms to get on different days of exercise because
Right.
of one piece of equipment or 2 pieces of equipment
What
that
were
one gym
they?
would have. Well, it was a little different because I always trained towards my body type, and I understood like what I wanted to do. So I never did heavy back squats with a barbell. So there was a squat machine where I think it's made by Nautilus, and it has a little ramp on it, but you can load that thing up with 5-6 plates if you wanted to, and really go for the depth and really focus on your quads and your glutes if you wanted it. That was tremendous for my like leg development. Nothing would have beat that. And then like there were certain hack squat machines that I used to like, and then some gyms like the rustic gyms with the weights they used to clang were better for like my back training versus like if I wanted to do chest, I was going to use not a lot of barbell, so I needed a gym that had more machine and equipment for chest training.
We're definitely not a machine. The only machine we have is a leg press.
Yeah. Sadly, you will only see me there to come and hang out and kick it. I'm just kidding. I could do some free weight stuff for sure.
Yeah.
I would love to come over there if I can.
For sure.
And check it out. So the thought process now is you have been using this facility to rent it out to other people. How's that turned out so far? How are you getting the word out about it? What is the strategy here? Break down everything for me in terms of like social media, paid advertisement. Are you even getting at cost right now for the facility, or are you running negative right now? I want some of those type of details.
So we're actually not actively advertising for anything that we're doing right now. So we were doing paid advertising when we had the facility and we were bringing in new members.
For just regular Joe Gym.
For
Classes.
our normal membership, yeah.
Okay.
And so most of our gym membership was, none of it or very little membership was like just come in and do your own thing. We offered that, but very few people actually did it, because most people that walked into our facility or most facilities don't know what they're doing.
Right.
And
They
so
want to be told what to do.
so for us, it was a different.
Instructional fitness is a big industry.
Yeah. And so when people walked in, it was like, hey, look, like we'll take you by the hand and tell you how to, eat, train, when to train, all that stuff. So it was different. And so when we were doing paid advertising, it was for that. So we can get people in and show them how to eat, how to train, how to be successful, how to get, the results that they wanted.
Right.
And so when we did that, we did paid advertising.
What amounts were you running? What was the strategy on paid advertisements? Did you guys learn anything about this?
So
he was killer at it.
So when we were doing paid advertising, mostly we were doing Facebook and then obviously Instagram because they're basically the same thing. And so we would run a variety of different ads depending on, what was going on either in the facility or even trending within Facebook because different things return differently. So like a feed post that has a picture versus a video versus a story post versus, being in someone's messenger or whatever, they all have different returns. And so just testing what would work. And then after we found a good one, then we would just kind of scale up or propagate it, test it a little
And
bit
where
more.
did you learn all of this?
So we were mentored by a company or a collective called Gym Launch, and the owner is awesome. His name is Alex Hermosi, and so
Gym like G or J?
GYM gym. Yeah.
So it's a promotional for gyms?
Mm-hmm. And so it's, so what they do is they've created an amazing network of small gyms or micro gym owners to try to,
Interesting.
keep up with franchise gyms or big gyms. So it's like, hey,
Gotcha.
look, as a micro gym owner, like how do you go up against
24-hour fitness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but if you're a part of a team, then you potentially have a little bit of a better strategy, right? And so we learned a lot of marketing strategy, how to run ads, all of that stuff through him, his team, and their amazing culture.
How did you meet him?
It was actually a referral from a friend. So one of our friends that does some training at our facility, like trains people at our facility.
He saw an ad. His brother saw an ad.
Yeah, his brother saw an ad. I was like, dude, I think this would be cool. Like, at least call them. So we called and then did like a Zoom meeting or whatever. Got to know them, their morals, their values, and we were part of that community for almost a year. We're no longer a part of the community just because we don't have in-person training. So like they're because they're basically a mastermind community. Their community doesn't necessarily serve us anymore. So. We left on good terms. We're still friends with everyone. It just doesn't serve our current business model.
So where are you trying to take this now?
In regards to what? Just go lift in the gym or just like us as people?
Both.
All right.
And how does that tie into each other? Because obviously it does.
Yeah. So just go lift. So right now we currently do one-on-one sessions. And then the majority of what we do as like a business push is working with different companies for corporate health or challenges to try to, for lack of better terms, trick people into developing habits, right? So like the 6-week transformation challenge or something like that is awesome. And so we go in and we show people how to eat. We give them some accountability steps to apply over the 6-week period. And then we teach them how to work out in a way that will get them really good results, but without killing them. So the meal plan isn't super deprivative. And we only require that they work out 3 times a week. And the reason that we do that is because it's something that they can sustainably do for a long period of time and still get really good results.
Okay.
And so we work with companies and, put a challenge on for them in hopes that they will get really good results in a short period of time and pick up the habits that they develop during that 6 weeks to continue with sustainable health. And if they want to continue working with us as individuals, then we bring them on board for our lifestyle membership, which is a constantly updated, online portal that has workouts. So that one we focus on 3 pillars, which is mindset, meals, and movement. And so we work on them mentally becoming the best possible version of themselves, teaching them how to fuel their body, and then giving them different ways to work out. So they have on there's workout options that range from, bodyweight calisthenics at the house to different athletes that we would bring into the gym and film them putting on a workout. So the
community can get the content.
Yeah, but then also it allows for different styles of training, because like if we were putting it on, it would be all us. But if we have like, some of our friends come in and they are, power lifters or bodybuilders or calisthenic athletes or whatever, they can build programs to cater to different people's needs or even their desire. Because like, hey, if I've been lifting for years and I want to try something new, do I scrap the community that I have and find something else? Or do I just see that like, oh, hey, look, like that option's also here for me?
So are you saying what you're doing is, because clearly neither of you is a nutritionist or a personal trainer certified as far as I could tell.
She is personal training certified.
What did you certify in?
NASM.
NASM. That's a good one. I've heard everybody does that one. But outside of that, right, like, because it's very tricky because there's so many different body types. People have different things that they want to do. being a trainer is like, it's like, ABCs. You gotta like
Yeah.
know everything, otherwise you can mess somebody up very severely. Like
Yeah,
you
for
would
sure.
train an 80-year-old person very differently than you would a 20-year-old person, obviously.
Yeah.
So
Go hard on the 80-year-old because they got the experience to take
that's
it.
right.
For
right.
sure. Ride them hard.
Come on, old man.
Yeah.
You can do 3 plates.
Let's see it. You got
Let's do
80
it.
years. Let's
Haven't
get
you seen that old woman like doing?
I've
hip
seen some
thrusters that are,
remarkably amazing physiques of folks that are like over 50, 60,
Right.
and I think even 70, maybe even 80. I'm pretty sure, like, if I think about some bodybuilders that, God, I can't remember the name of the guy. He's very popular, Robbie Robinson. I'm not sure if you know Robbie Robinson. He still looks phenomenal, and he's in exceptionally good shape.
And he made it into his, late ages where
Yeah,
it's like some of the bodybuilders now, they don't last
That's
past
right.
60, 50.
Robbie Robinson is one of the OGs. So it sounds to me like what you're putting together is a community where, yes, people can get a membership and be a part of this online virtual fitness community, but to cater to other people's tastes, you are bringing content about from people that are subject matter experts in the field that they are in, such as powerlifters, bodybuilders, performance athletes of different sorts, maybe obstacle course racing, and on one level, and of course mix in there with the personality of the two of you and the background that you have. Are you also administering other people that come into the gym and share their course, also do the counseling piece or the consulting piece where they're talking to the people directly and your audience? Are you giving them access to the audience that you have or you're trying to build?
Of course.
We have a Facebook community, and so they're all a part of the Facebook community, and so they can communicate like through that. And then in the Facebook platform, every week we go live and do live question and answers for if like whatever questions they have about either mindset, meals, or nutrition. If there are no questions, then we'll usually go and talk about a topic. We'll start with that, and then if something pops up and someone has a question, then we'll answer it. And so that's the way that we are engaging with the community that we have.
And then the like in regards to when an athlete creates a program for us, it's an affiliate style relationship. So they get like their program, and so like they come up with how it is. We offer to shoot it for them, put it together, build it for them, and then allow them to host it on our site, and they could either sell it on their own or sell it on our site. One of the reasons that we, suggest and most people would prefer to sell it with us is because it offers a lot more to their people.
Well, you've already built the community. You already have an audience,
Yeah.
rather than them trying to go and find an audience for themselves.
Yeah, and so they get any of the upfront sales, and then any residual that they get from ongoing membership we keep, and then when we reach,
You sure you don't watch Shark Tank?
and then when
Sounds like a Kevin O'Leary deal right there.
And then when we hit touch points, then we pay out for bonuses, because if retention is high, that means that people like what we're doing. So like if the program is well, like you can put out a program and drive people to our platform, but if they don't stay, then your program sucks. So if your program is good, then obviously we pay out in like incentives, like, oh hey look, like quarterly we're doing well, so we want to make sure that everyone's happy.
Where did this idea come from? Whose idea was it?
She likes to take credit for all the ideas. So
No,
it was hers.
I was gonna say
Well, how do you both come up with ideas like this? Do you sit down intentionally to brainstorm together, or is it spontaneous and then you say, okay, we're going to start working on this and like see where it takes us for a couple of days, and then if nothing...
We both have a lot of different ideas, and so then we just like communicate with one another, like I was thinking this, and we have one of the most challenging things for us is we have so many ideas.
Right.
And so it's like when they pop up, it's like, that's a great idea. We really need to focus on one thing.
Sure.
Because otherwise, like, you start focusing on other things, and then all your attention just goes elsewhere, and then you
Right.
don't really like delve deep into
You
this
do
one
10
thing.
things half-assed instead of
Yeah.
one thing really good.
Right.
Mhm. So, but like for him, he has like a huge passion in changing the world, and so the facility, like he said, was very limiting. And he felt like if we had built like an online community, then he'd be able to affect more people. And it allows us a lot more freedom because we're not tied to having to go to the gym every single day. We can create content from anywhere, and we can post it from anywhere. And we both like creating things. And so it sparks a different drive within us.
How do you budget your time?
Blocking time and waking up early.
I
So
want more specifics than that.
So it's done in a like weekly, daily, almost hourly manner in regards to like, hey, look, like what are our goals for this week, and
Yeah.
then how do we want to handle each day, and then so like if our goal this week is to effectively like build this program, it's like where do we want to be by each day, and so like Monday we'll do this, Tuesday we'll do that. It's like, oh, we'll film this.
So how much time is spent on planning?
What would you say?
Maybe like 30 minutes to an hour. But I mean,
Every day?
No, not every day, because usually we do so our goal every day is to get 10,000 steps in. That's our walk. So on our walks, we generate a lot of ideas,
So
and
that's most of our
we
planning.
talk, we reflect. And so it's like, okay, so what are we thinking about tomorrow? What's our plan for tomorrow? What did you like about today? What are we thinking about this week? What's our goal? What is our drive? And then like for me, I really like vision boards because I have to see where we're going. And even like when we first launched the gym, we're like, okay, well, what is it going to feel like? What is it going to look like? And every single thing that we wanted was in the gym that we found. And so we got very specific and clear on what it is that we had wanted. And so like when we talk about this online platform, I'm like, okay, so where is this going to go? And so I take it and I write down, okay, this is the online platform. We're going to have mindset. What are the types of things we want to talk about within mindset? And I start just like writing and creating things so that we have an idea of where it is that we want to go, so that we can break it down to small, simple steps.
Got you.
And then also sharing it with people. Like one of the things that we feel like is huge, one for ourselves and then two for other people, is being able and willing to talk about stuff. And so like if you were to have an idea for a business, you could think about it in your head and it could be like the perfect plan.
Yeah.
But then when you start to articulate it or say it to someone in a way that is understandable, you might find huge flaws in
Fair
what
enough.
it is. And so for us, it's like, oh, the more you talk about it, like with each other or with someone else, it allows us to refine the process a little bit more. Because like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to have this gym. Everyone's going to come. It's going to be amazing. It's like, well, how do you get people to this? Well, I don't know. I didn't think that far ahead. Or you just think like, oh, it'll be cool. We'll do this. But most of the time when you think about something in your head, it doesn't have to be logical when you think it in your head. But when you explain it to someone else, it does. And so talking about it helps because it forces you to rationalize or be logical about like, all right, this is what we need to do or want to do.
But sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying whether someone like gives you feedback or not, even if someone's just like, tell me about it. And then you have to explain it. And even if they don't question you, you start to question like, oh, does that even make sense? Like, is that a real thing?
Right. You're actually starting to see the flaws in your logic because you haven't formulated it through, and now you're doing it for the first time, maybe the second time. So where does the balance of, acting, because you do need to keep doing things on a day-to-day basis to see that you're moving towards something, because I find that it's difficult to keep planning so far out because how much of the world are you really able to predict, honestly speaking?
Mm-hmm.
Not very much. So what's the point in like kind of planning everything out and, not being able to execute, or then not feeling that you don't have a plan forward so you don't execute? It's like finding the right amount of execution and knowing just enough to kind of look, into the next maybe step or two steps. But then you really don't know. You're going to have to pivot a lot throughout that process.
Yeah, we definitely know about that.
So talk about that, because that's real and that's very relatable to a lot of people.
Well, so like for me, the biggest thing is, I don't know, there's a term that some people may heard, but it works well for me. And it's basically just reverse engineering what it is that you want. So like think about your big goal.
Okay.
And then you have it completed and work backwards from getting it. Most people want to work forward. It's like, all right, I'm here. How do I get there? But most of the time, it's easier to do the other way around. It's like, all right, I have a gym. How did I get there? What did I do? And go backwards, because then you can identify your next step. And the smaller you can make it going backwards, the easier it is to move forward. Because if it was like, all right, step 1, no gym. Step 2, gym. It's like, all right, that's a big step. But if you break it down, it's like, all right, like we need to get equipment. In order to get equipment, we need to get funding.
So you're saying you start with the final goal in mind and work backwards from the final goal.
You have to.
One
Otherwise,
step minus from the final goal, not from here's where I am and I want a gym. What's the next thing I got to do?
No, yeah, it's totally the other way around. So
Okay.
Finished product down to the smallest step. And then like, all right, what are the small daily steps that I would need to do to make it there? So rather than like, because then you can be successful every day. Like if you do it the other way around, most of the time the focus is on the gym.
Right.
If you do it this way, at least for me, the way that it works out is like you break it all the way down to the smallest step, and then the goal is the next step, the next step, the next step. Similar, like if you were in sales and you're like, all right, like I have a quota of 1,000 calls a month. It's like, fuck, that seems like a lot of calls. If you're like, all right, that's only 500 calls a day. That's only 500 calls a week. I work 5 days a week, so 100 calls a day, and then I can effectively make one call every 5 minutes. So then I can get all this done. Oh, just like I could get them before lunch if I wanted to, and like that's easy. So like all I got to do is 100 phone calls a day, and if I could do them at this pace, then like
I'm going to get done.
Yeah, for sure.
I think a lot of it is like for most people, it's hard to concretize and figure out that
that's a fun word.
The actions that you take are going to bear fruit right away. And if not, then have the intelligence enough to like either keep pushing forward in that direction or freak out and be like, oh, it's not working, and give up.
Yeah, well, the
But
fruit's the last thing on the tree, right? Like
takes a while.
But that's not so obvious, though, as you make it sound.
But it is, right? Like you plant a tree, and the last thing to
3 to
come
5
is the
years.
fruit.
Well, I wouldn't even go that far. I'm saying even in the steps of, let's say you planned out your week.
Mm-hmm.
Or let's not even go to the week. Let's say people plan out your day, and I'm sure this has happened to you. You plan out your day, and you're not sticking to mostly what you plan out in your day anyway, because things will come up that you didn't plan for. So how do you then realign yourself to stick to what you thought you needed to do? And if you aren't able to do that, then what you could do and should do, how do you figure those things out? I mean, that's very much a challenge.
Well, I mean, you would want to set yourself up for a way that like would allow you to potentially get the productive things done, and then also build in firefighting time, which would be like times to like, hey, look, something happened in the middle of the day, I need to deal with this. So like if you can build in time to deal with other things or overflow, so like blocking is awesome, because like if you block schedule, great, but then you also have to build in like overflow for your block. So if it's like, hey, look, I'm going to spend 1 hour reading, but then at the end of the day, you have 45 minutes of like overflow time because you didn't necessarily hit what you wanted earlier. So you have that catch up time. But then if you don't need the catch up, then you got 45 minutes off. That's dope. But setting yourself up, like most people, that's an excuse. Like you have an idea of how your day goes most days, and then you let something throw you off course. It's not like something happened and you have to do it. Even like an email response, like that's one of the things that like she would struggle with before. Like someone's like, like a customer, someone would email and they're like, oh my God, I have this problem. And so like you taking 2 seconds to be like, all right, like one, is it really a problem? Like you can ask them that, or you can make the judgment call. Like for some people, it would be as simple as just being like, hey, look, like I understand this may seem like an emergency, and like sometimes this is hard to deliver, but you gain respect for yourself in doing so. Like if someone comes to you with an emergency, if you can have the ability to look at them and say like, on a scale from 1 to 10, like how much is this really an emergency? And I need you to understand that if I deal with this, someone else is going to have to wait. So like, does this justify me pushing someone else back?
Right.
And then they go like, oh no, I just wouldn't know if you want to grab coffee. Never mind. That's fucking cool. But like most people are just like, all right, like I guess I'll deal with it. And like you made that decision. Like you were presented with an opportunity, you chose to take it. But that's ultimately up to you. So you can build in that time where it's like, hey, look, like I can't deal with this right now, but at 4:30, like I got an opening.
Right.
So you have to respect your own schedule. And like I said, most of the time you have you know where your day is. Like that's why I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, is because I know that no one's gonna bother me. And so like if there's something that I want to get done, like then I get it done then, because no shit's gonna hit the fan when everyone else is asleep.
Right.
But even being like when you had said responding to emails, like, so I used to be very reactive to things. So rather than like reacting to something would happen, it's like, okay, like prioritizing, like, is this really a priority right now? Do I have to deal with this?
Right.
These are the things that I wanted to address today. Do I need to take one of the things that I wanted to do today and push it to the back burner to immediately deal with this? So being able to analyze, like, do I need to do this now, or is this something that
So
can
how
wait?
much of this is happening inside of your own head versus how much of this are you doing actively by maybe using a tool or some methods?
Brendan
writing stuff
Bouchard
down.
has his one, what is it? The habits planner. And that was one thing that really, at least for me, helped with the whole block timing. I still definitely have challenges with it for sure, because it is, things come up. But it comes down to like how how much do you respect yourself? How much do you want to really be productive throughout the day? And taking the time, especially like in the morning, to like, what is it that I want to achieve today? And making sure that you don't put too much on your plate. Because at least for me, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to get this done. And then it turns into this long to-do list. And then you're like slowly checking things off. And maybe you're not even checking things off. And it starts to get like pushed to weeks and months and whatever. And it's like, does this really need to be on this list today?
Right.
And so, like, Brian Tracy has a book called Eat That Frog. And it's a, like, like productivity style book. And so it's basically like doing the most challenging thing first. But not even that. For him, he's like, hey, look at your day. There's probably a large number of things on that you don't necessarily have to do. So like identify the few like have to do's, and then everything else either like don't do them or get to them after the big things. But most people will spend their time doing all of the little things and then like, oh, I didn't have time for the big one. Whereas like if you did it the other way around, you could probably get a lot more stuff.
I sometimes
done.
use this thing called an Eisenhower matrix, where you just make 4 squares. There's one on that board over there, but basically you have the first column, which is important, not important, urgent, not urgent. And you start putting things in those, and then you deal with only the stuff that's urgent and important, and then you can push off things that are not. And sometimes when I get overwhelmed, that's the one I use. But I'm curious, like, what worries you about your lifestyle currently, both of you individually and collectively?
I don't have a lot of worries.
He never worries. I'm the worrier of the two.
So what are your worries?
I'm always financially worried because, like, for me, leaving nursing was huge. Because I'm like, okay, well, we better make an income. And so that's always the scariest thing for me.
And it's different when you have like, when you're in control of your income, it's freeing, but it's also scary because like nothing's guaranteed. Whereas like as a nurse, like her job wasn't guaranteed, but as long as she had one, the paycheck was.
Right.
Whereas like this one, like you were saying, you could wake up, you could bust your ass all day. It doesn't mean you're going to like have anything monetarily to show for it. And so like sometimes there's a way of like, for her, she's like, is it worth it? Or are we doing the right thing? Because nothing's easy. And as much as you would like to be like, oh, we struck gold, like things take time.
Sure.
So as you were saying, like the bearing the fruit, like there's a lot of times when you're an entrepreneur that you're going to be doing a lot of things that you don't want to do. And you're going to be doing it continually, and you're not going to see any results or progress from it, but you still have to do it, and you still have to keep pushing. And so then it comes down to like, how much is it worth it to you, and how bad do you want to achieve that goal when you're not seeing any results or anything from it? And so how long are you willing to wait? And so like for us, it's like, just keep pushing and doing it. And, this is what we want, and we're determined to get it.
Why?
For what? Like, why do we want to do this?
Yeah. Why do you want to keep pushing for this?
You can answer for you, and then I'll answer for me.
For me, like, it was funny because, so being a nurse before, I saw obviously a lot of sick people, and I, like, there were so many things that they could do that.
Bring the mic closer to you.
There was. Is that better?
Much better.
All right. There were so many things that they could easily like tweak, like with health and with fitness, that I wanted to help them with. And I didn't think like, I was like, oh, everybody's like, oh my gosh, it must be so rewarding to be a nurse. I'm like, well, it is, but I'm like, that's my job. I just do it. And I thought opening a gym, I'm like, oh, it'd be super cool. I can help people in a different way. But like hearing stories like our one who reverse catfish someone, I was like, wow, like that was super cool. And then even getting messages from our members are like, I just can't find a place like the place that you guys provided. I love Just Go Lift. Like those types of things. It's like, wow, like we really do make a difference. And we have really like touched and affected people by helping them, see that they are worth it, that they deserve to be and live like a healthier, happier life. So those are the times that I'm like, that's really cool. And then for me, like I also do it for him and for my family, because I hate seeing like my family and his family and just all of our families like struggle money wise.
Right.
And so my ultimate goal would be to just be able to take care of everybody so that they could retire and not have to worry about things like that.
And you?
Mine I feel like potentially it's simpler.
Sorry, I'm complicated.
No. For me, it's I know what it's like not to be okay with yourself. I know what it's like not to look in the mirror, not to want to look in the mirror. I know what it's like for people in your life to look at you, and you feel their disappointment. And I want to show people that, regardless of if you've ever felt that, like, you don't have to stay there. You can do something else. You could be something else. You could experience a different way of life, and you deserve more than what it is that you may be feeling at this time. That whatever you see in yourself, or you're afraid to see in yourself, like, it doesn't mean that it's there forever.
I like that. So you posted something today, I think, about, knowing your worth. How does one come to know their worth?
It would be similar to like what we talked about earlier, in regards to like being able to ask yourself difficult questions. But I think more simply, it would be, at least for me, is experience. So experiencing good and bad. Like, there's a lot of people that will, like, talk about like, oh, you have to experience struggle in order to like have drive, right? Like, how can you know hunger if you haven't starved, kind of mentality. But I think that you can still have a drive if you've had a taste for something better, even if you don't have like something bad. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people that would say, if you expose yourself to something good, then you can see like, oh, I like this, and you can raise your own standard.
Right.
And so allowing yourself to experience different things, both positive and negative, will let you know what is okay with you and how you can define like what you're worth, or the lifestyle that you want to live. But you also, like, you have to be willing to question your life. And so, like, for some people, like, well, I don't know what to ask. But it's just like taking a hard look in the mirror and being like, this is my life. And like, not am I okay with it, but does this make me happy? Because there's a lot of people that, like, they're okay, but like, you can be better than okay. There's things that people put up with that they probably shouldn't put up with because they're not miserable, or because things could be worse. But like, is that really how you want to live the rest of your life? And you have to be willing to question those beliefs. Like, you have a job that it's not bad, but like, is that how you want to live the rest of your life? Are you okay living the rest of your life with an okay job? Like, that's not a bad situation. Like, sure, that's fine. But like, you know that you deserve more if you're seeking more. And so, like, just being willing to ask, like, hey, look, can I have more? And why not?
But that game never ends.
For sure. But it shouldn't have to. Like, just
Well, it does. It's a finite game. We all die.
Well, but
you're continually seeking it, like growth.
yeah, and if you're speaking energetically, then your body dies, but you don't, right? So, not necessarily. And like, for us, everyone is in the pursuit of progress, and like a lack of fulfillment or being unhappy is more of when you become, comfortable or stagnant, where it's like, hey, look, this is just what I do. So you can have a great life, but if it's the same, you're not progressing, then most of the time you get to a point where you're probably unhappy.
Sick of it.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you have everything, and then you start to hate yourself. You're like, I have everything. Why am I so pissed off?
Well, I believe first you have to figure out that why do you need stuff to fulfill you?
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, then you can figure out what you would need to do to find those things that you think are going to make your life better, potentially.
Or just think, like, this one's potentially a little bit more challenging, but think like, all right, if I want this thing, if I want, if I want a Bugatti, like, why? And so, not necessarily like, oh, like some intrinsic reason, but like, what is it going to make me, or how am I going to feel when I get it? Like, I'm going to feel like this when I get it. It's like, all right, why can't you feel that now? Like, the car's not going to give you that. And that's why achieving things can be so empty, because you think that the car or the job or the money will bring you something, but you have the ability to feel that now. So like, what are you expecting to feel when you accomplish your goal, and give yourself permission to feel it now? Because if you don't, like, the goal's not going to fucking
Well,
go.
the only thing that you have is the present moment. Everything else is an idea.
Yeah. So you might as well just allow yourself to embrace it, right?
That's true. So I suppose there's only a couple of questions I think I have in my mind. We're running up on about 2 hours and 43 minutes, believe it or not. I think what would be actionable and helpful to people is to hear about your routine and how you start your day and how you go about your day. And more importantly, especially for me, and my audience specifically around when you feel anxiety, when you feel frustrated, and what are the actionable things that you do to walk yourself back to equilibrium. That's what I would want to know.
So daily routine is very important to me or to us. So for me, like we said, I start my
Get
day
up at 3 a.m.
Yeah. And one of the things that's big for that is so I'm not super hard line on a specific time or like whatever, but I try to keep my routine as consistent as possible.
That's what I learned from Christina.
No matter where I am and no matter what day of the week it is. So a lot of people it's like, oh, I'm consistent Monday through Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday I'm on a different routine. But then it makes it hard to get back on your routine.
Fair enough.
And so just like, and if your routine is set up for you to be successful, then why would you want to take a day off? And so like, if you need a day off, then you should probably look at your routine and change it. And so even like where we're on vacation and we travel, I stick to a very similar routine. I still wake up at 3 a.m. I read or do something to...
Sounds like a very rigid way. I understand it's accomplishing a goal, but how do you account for the spontaneity in life?
What does the spontaneity bring?
Well, how would you know if you were so structured?
Because I've been spontaneous before and it led me nowhere.
I mean, things will come up, and like there's been times in regards to like business where we've stayed up later, and there's like sometimes he'll take maybe a couple extra, like either 30 minutes to an hour. If it's like, oh, like my body needs rest today, like he'll allow for that. It's not like, but there are times when it's like, no, I'm just going to get up, but then he might take a nap throughout the day to allow his body to get some sleep. So there is flexibility, but he's like very disciplined, and like that's where
freedom comes from.
Yeah.
Is discipline. Like if you want to be able to do the things that you want to do, then you have to have some type of structure. Just like, if you were to look at, like counting macros, if you're not doing it to get on stage, if you're doing it to know what your body needs, it's like, hey, look, like my body needs this and I can give it to that. And if it fits within there, then I have the freedom to eat whatever I want. So you have some structure, and then that structure gives you freedom. And so it's similar to a schedule where it's like, hey, look, like having this structure gives me freedom. Most people want it the other way around. It's like, oh, I just want to be spontaneous or do whatever I want. And then I also want freedom, but that doesn't necessarily happen. And like most of the successful people that I would look up to, like it's the structure that gives them the freedom. Mm-hmm. Just like a smaller example would be like you have a job that you go to every day so that you could take a vacation. So like that job allows you to have the freedom of the vacation. And so, or even, the structure throughout the week allows you to have the weekend off. And so you have to have some type of structure in order to have the freedom.
Right.
Because without it, there's nothing to hold the freedom up, right? Or whatever.
And what's your daily routine like?
I usually get up at 4, sometimes 4:30.
Jesus.
I know.
Slacker.
So early.
I know. But because usually like I go to bed sometimes at the same time, sometimes a little bit later than him. And so for me, I like to at least get 8 hours of sleep is my goal.
Very prescriptive.
Yes, 8 hours. And so like if I end up going to bed at 8:30, I'm like, well, I'll just get up at 4:30 instead of 4. Because I like at the end of my day, I like to have my numbers calculated for the morning. So my numbers as in my macro numbers. So in the morning I wake up and then I already have what I'm going to like eat throughout the day. And then I prepare my meals. Sometimes I read, sometimes I'll plan the day. Lots of times since I already have my numbers calculated, I'll listen to a book or a podcast to just get me in the right like mindset of things. And then when I'm doing that, he's usually already at the gym working out. And so he'll come home and I'll be working usually. And then I'll be preparing to go to the gym. So he'll walk with me to the gym. And then he'll be preparing his meals. So we usually do like the things that grow us and make us better in the morning and take care of ourselves first. And then
take care of business.
And then afterwards we take care of business. Yeah.
I like that. Mm-hmm. I think that's a very good routine, and I've been trying to incorporate more of that in my life. I woke up today at 5:30 and went to the gym.
There you go.
Nice.
So how'd it feel?
We're very proud of you.
Good. No caffeine, man.
Nice.
Making it happen. No caffeine yet. So actually, I took caffeine like last Friday, and I could not sleep.
I know you posted like a video or something.
3:30 in the morning. I was like sitting here.
The lights were going in the background. You're like,
oh, I made it into a 3D hologram, so it looked like I was in a lab.
Oh, no.
And it was like, what do I do? I finished everything I could think of. I just can't sleep. And yeah, so caffeine pretty powerful. Do you guys utilize any substances or anything like
He's
that
like
to?
a pot of he used to be a pot of coffee a day. Now he's like a half of a pot and a couple espresso shots. But he doesn't do it for the caffeine. He does it because he enjoys the taste of it.
He does it for the caffeine.
No, like because there's been
even,
times
like, yeah,
when
there's-
he won't.
Yeah, there's I do it most days, but not every day. And then I also like I don't do it where it's like it's not the first thing that I have when I wake up. It's not like, oh, I gotta have my coffee first. Like I have a good part of my routine first,
Yeah.
and then I enjoy a cup of coffee. I like the taste of coffee and the like therapy of it, and like drinking it, enjoying it, and it's more like me time or meditative because like I do my best to enjoy it, not necessarily afterwards. And even then, like most of the time, if I'm feeling a dip in energy, I would prefer to take a nap rather than like I need a cup of coffee or I need something to pick me up. And so I don't think I rarely ever was like, oh man, I really need energy. But like I said, I also drink it so much I probably never dip in energy too. So like,
Do you two ever break off of routine?
not necessarily. I don't know. Like, yes and no. So there's things that we do that are outside of routine, but most of the time it is planned or schedule where it's like, oh look, like this weekend let's do this or this day let's do that. And so it's not necessarily like.
So there's never like, oh, this is happening today. You just found out about it. Let's go do this.
Very rarely.
There would have to be a benefit.
Yes,
Like,
there'd have to be
most of the time people do it because they want to escape their life or their reality. It's like, oh, this seems better than my life. Let's go do that. And we don't have that. So like, it's like there's no need. Like, it's not that the routine that we have is so rigid that we wouldn't
How would
want to
you
leave
know
it.
until you went and saw what could take place?
So we were like so ingrained in the business.
It seems like you're just blocking off too much by doing that. Because if you didn't know what you could find if you went to an event that was unplanned, you have no idea what could potentially come out of it.
For sure.
But you have to have some type of guidance or structure, because if you continually go to these unplanned things, then how are you ever going to get anything done? And so we would make an executive decision. Like, we've been doing a lot more networking lately. We never was doing networking. And so now we see like, hey, like we should really get out there. We should talk with more people. And it's paid off tremendously. So we're going to more networking events because we see a benefit from it. But we have to like weigh out the pros and the cons. Like, is this worth it? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And so it comes.
You can't live in fear of making the wrong decision, right? Because like also like that can go both ways.
FOMO.
Like, yeah, but that can go both ways, because you could say like, oh, well, what if staying in here was more productive? Like, if I go out there, I don't know what'll happen. If I stay in here, I don't know what'll happen. So like you could play the devil's advocate on both sides. Like, maybe the structure is limiting, but maybe the freedom is limiting. So like it is all up to you, right? Like, you have to understand what's important to you. Like, do you enjoy that? Do you need that? If you do, great. If she does, great. If someone else does or doesn't, like, that's up to them. They have to know what's important to them. So it's always about like checking back with you. Like, what am I working towards? What's important to me? If it's important for you to have some spontaneity and go out and enjoy something, then great. If the structure is important to you and you're using the, spontaneity as an excuse because you want to handle something, then you need to check yourself and go like, oh, like that event isn't important, but it's distracting, so I want to do it. And maybe there'll be some possibilities there. Because like you could justify like, oh, well, if I went to that party, something will probably be good. I could probably meet something that could probably be on the podcast, and that'll be good. And that's probably more important than sitting down and doing what I needed to do anyway. So I'll go do that because there's probably some really good possibilities there. Like, you could play that on both sides, right?
I guess you could. So Christina told me to ask you, how do you overcome social labels and stand in your own authentic self, especially on social media?
So it's funny because we had this conversation a little bit ago or something similar. Before, like in my previous marriage, I felt like I wasn't truly myself. Or there's always like, oh, well, when I hang out with these types of people, like these are my party friends, these are my study friends. And you have like, you're a different type of person with all of these different people. But when you learn to, like, I guess, truly love yourself and, know your worth or value, like what it is that you want, you should be able to feel comfortable around anybody. Like you
Right.
shouldn't have to put on a front, because putting on that front, it's stressful. You know, like when you're in a relationship, you shouldn't have to play to a certain part, because if you're never truly expressing your feelings and showing like who you truly are, then it's not really you. And then you're just playing this part and you're not going to be successful. And so with us, we were just very upfront and open. And for me, I found like, well, this is me and this is how you're going to accept me, whether you like it or not. And if you don't like who I am or don't resonate with me, then it's okay. Like you can't please everybody, because I used to be the people pleaser. And now it's like, well, this is me.
So how do you do that on social media?
I honestly, for me, I just post like what I'm feeling or what I'm thinking. So if something sparks interest in me, then I just,
So
tell
you're
my
not posting
heart.
just to post.
No,
And why not post something that you think will get a whole bunch of likes?
like my butt. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, or like, pictures of yourself in a bikini.
Because I don't need the social gratification of it. And it's funny. So like you say that, I used to be one of those people, and I would never post like, let me post my butt or whatever. But I used to take a lot more selfies, and I was more like, oh, look at what I'm doing. And then I realized like, that's just bullshit. Like, what is the point? Like, you're not even like being in the moment and living in the moment. You're just posting to post. And like, what is the purpose of it? To get more likes? Like, why do you need more likes? To feel more significant? And so for me, it's like, well, just be who you are. And like, you're going to attract the people that you are like, which is kind of how you asked, like, how did you get those people in the gym? Well, we put off a certain energy. And when we talked with them, we had similar feelings and similar thinking patterns and stuff. And so it's the same thing. Like when I'm posting on social media, it's something that I'm feeling. I'm a lot better at like writing than I am speaking. And so like when we do a lot of our lives, it's just something that like popped into our head. Like, hey, like we should talk about this. Let's share this. This is something that helps us throughout the day or whatever. But just it's easier to be yourself rather than put up a front.
But you got to first know who you are.
Yeah, for sure.
Otherwise, you're just pretending to be all other things that you're not.
Exactly. And the only way to know who you are is to know like what it is that you want, what makes you happy. And the way that I did that was I experienced
Yeah,
things.
you have to try stuff. Like, does this make me happy?
Yeah.
Nope. And then I feel like so many people get stuck on like, especially in like a social influence world, right? Where people get like, they build an identity. And then if that identity shifts, then they don't know what to do, because it's like, oh, like all of my fans know me as this. And then like, now I can't be somebody else, even though that's not who I am anymore. Because like who they're being on social media might be who they were. Like we said, like we've known each other for only 3 years, and we're different people now than we were when we first met. But our social media like shows that journey, hopefully. And so, but like realizing one of the things that I always thought was funny, it was something I learned about, marketing. So it was that so many people are worried about doing something that does or doesn't align with their brand, which would be like an image, right? Like, oh, this is my image. And so they won't do any marketing that they fear is outside of their branding. But if you never venture outside of that, how do you know what'll work or what customers?
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement with that.
And so and same with yourself, is like people are like, oh, well, like what if I do this and it doesn't fit? Like, how do you know? Maybe you'll like it. Like, just try it. And the reality is that like, no one knows who you are. Like, no one cares. So like, maybe you'll piss off a couple thousand fans that follow you. And even like big brands where they have millions of followers, like in comparison to the rest of the world, like that's a small percentage of the people that actually know who you are. So like,
say the Jay Shetty one, the thought of like,
yeah, Christy knows this one too. It's that like most people, and it's actually, I don't think it's his quote, it's someone else's, but it's the we aren't what we think we are, and we're not what we think. We're not what other people think we are. We are what we think other people think we are. And so most of the time, you're just trying to live as you think someone else sees you.
Right.
And that's like I forget who else said it. They have a theory. It's I think they called it 18-40-80. And so when you're 18, you're worried about what everyone thinks about you. And then when you're 40, you don't give a fuck what anyone thinks about you. And then when you're 80, you realize no one was thinking about you. And for most people, I would challenge you to, as much time as you worried about what other people think, that's the same thought that's going through other people's head. They're not worried about you. They're worried about themselves and how they look. So like, if that's the case, if they're not worried about you anyway, you might as well be yourself, because they're worried about how they look, not you.
That's true. I mean, most of us are worried about how other people think we look, but most people are not thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves.
Yeah.
And that's just the dialogue that's playing inside of their head too.
Yeah. So everyone's thinking the same thing. It's like, I wonder what he's thinking. I wonder what she's thinking. I wonder,
Yeah.
it's like, they're not worried like, oh, that guy's a dick. Like they're wondering that they hope they don't look like a dick. It's like, if you're yourself, then everyone's at ease, or at least you are. And like,
Fair enough.
why not? So on social media, like, I do my best to stay grounded with myself. And then if that's the case, then I portray that. The only time that I portray anything that's different than social media is when I'm not connected to who I am.
I respect that. Is there anything that you would like to bring up now that we haven't talked about?
No, not that I can think of. I guess.
Well, I just want to say in closing, for anybody that's interested, I do want to share real quickly the link to the Power Couple Cartel. It's justgolift.com/Power Couple Cartel. You can check it out if you guys liked listening to these two and all the wisdom that they've gathered from their experience. They're taking 10 couples at this time. May 30th, which is actually tomorrow, is the last day to reserve a spot. And then the first session is happening on June 29th. So check it out if you're interested and you want to grow, as an individual, but also with your significant other and your life partner. I think it'd be very valuable, obviously, considering all of the stuff we've already discussed and all the wisdom that you've poured out today from your experiences. And, I really want to thank you both for coming on and talking to me and spending 3 hours exactly. I think this is
bladder is gonna burst.
Yeah. You could go pee, by the way, in the middle of it.
Oh no, it's okay. It's okay.
It's okay.
I held strong.
Yeah, I know. I have an iron bladder too. So thank you, really, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, for coming and hanging out with me and kind of sharing your story with me. Hopefully, as time goes on, this will live on beyond you and me, and somewhere someone will find this and hear this and maybe be inspired by your story to spark change in themselves.
For sure.
Thank you.
And blossom their lives. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get out of here. Have a good night.